Is it streaming?
Yeah, that is.
All right.
So this is streaming on the, or
So-
you're just recording. You'll edit
I'm
it?
recording the podcast, but I'm streaming us recording it.
Oh, okay.
I'll post that later. So yeah, you're live on Facebook and YouTube. There's nobody right now, but there's usually only 40, 50 people because I never live and stream, but I'm starting to.
Right.
I think it's the next thing. I'll bet you if you put a camera in your office, if you're in there a lot, and just let people watch, that'll get big.
I know we've been talking about that for about 2 months. We haven't done anything yet.
It's crazy how easy it is too, because what you do is you put a camera in your office and realize that there's one in there, and then as people come and go and you do your thing. Now, obviously nobody's going to sit there and watch somebody checking their email for 6 hours, but if like my office, people are in and out every second. And dude, I think like that voyeuristic craving people have will cause one of those to kick off. Maybe not mine, but somebody's, because like, dude, there's offices all over this United States where like the craziest shit's happening and being said. It's unbelievable.
Right.
Shit that would be HR violations for sure.
Yeah, I think most of them, you get them going. You have to interact with the people that are, because they're asking questions. You have to be able to answer those questions. And I'm not great at that.
Well, again, I go live and ignore everybody, and I notice their questions. And if you want to answer them, we can answer them on the podcast. But when I'm taping a podcast, they're just watching it for a second. And the thought is, if they gets deep and they're like, what'd he say? And then that goes dead, what are they going to do?
Right.
I got to find this podcast. Boom. So that's the thought. Anyway, folks, we're about to go live, drop a bomb with freaking Matt Cox. You guys might have seen him on social media. You may have seen his face, didn't know his name. It's Matt Cox. Inside True Crime. Stand by.
Oh, me? Oh,
Yeah, you want to, yeah. And it's, by the way, you can just move that anywhere. Yeah. Get as comfortable as you want. Here we go.
Yeah. Let's see, is this thing?
Listen up or run for cover.
To,
Did it work?
yeah, I just want to. Here's, it's.
Okay.
Is it on? It's good?
Yep.
We're good.
Here we go.
Listen
Yeah,
up or run for cover. From the people who haven't to the people who need it, the real Brad Lea is dropping.
What it is, Brad Lea back again with another episode of Dropping Bombs. Today in the studio, folks, I got a real badass for you. Matt Cox is in the house. Matt, what's happening?
What's going on?
Folks, if you guys don't know who he is, you can follow him at Inside True Crime or Matthew Cox, spelled just like it sounds, COX. And basically, this says at one point, dude, you were one of the most wanted white collar criminals in the country.
Yeah, I was on the FBI's most wanted list, the U.S. Marshals most wanted list, and I was number one on the Secret Service's most wanted list.
Now, where were you when you were on these lists? Just out in plain sight?
Yeah, at that point, I was just in the United States for about 3 years. That was after.
How can they not find you though?
I mean, I'd had several plastic surgeries. I'd had 2 hair transplants, a nose job. I had
To evade?
well, I mean, obviously, I was, part of that is vanity,
Yeah.
So,
But I mean, do you look like you used to, but you just look better? Or do you change your damn look to evade being the most wanted?
I don't think anybody can change their look entirely. It'd take a lot, right? Like, so I tweaked some stuff, and part of it was I wanted to alter my opinion, my appearance enough. I don't know if I ever did, but I noticed some slight differences, but eventually I got caught. Keep in mind, this was in 2000 when I was on the run. This was from 2003 to 2006. So the internet was not as prevalent as it is now.
I don't even think it existed, did it?
No, it did. It did.
The internet did, but social media didn't.
No. There was no TikTok or Instagram. Matter of fact, Facebook. When I got arrested, Facebook had come out. It had been out for about a year.
See, when you say internet now, people just automatically think social media. When the internet's like the internet.
Yeah.
But when you said internet, I was thinking social media. So I'm trying to put myself in your spot. You're when I figured this was trumped up a little bit, like the most wanted. What'd you do? Kill people?
No. I ran multiple different types of real estate schemes.
Intentional. You were just straight up shady.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Absolutely.
So what were you doing before that?
So it started with me being a mortgage broker. As a mortgage
legit
broker.
mortgage broker.
I got licensed.
You started legit.
I have a license.
Okay.
So here's what happened is I went to work for a subprime company. Look, that process takes a while, right? Like you have to get your license, you have to start the process. There's no salary. So I'm working for a month or so. So I'm working for at least a month or so before I close my first loan. I have to drum up business. So I have a couple clients. My very first loan, I get all the documents. I go into my manager's office before we send it off to underwriting. And this process, you've borrowed many mortgages, I'm sure. But before the process of sending it off to underwriting to get them to qualify my borrower for the loan, my manager looks at the file and she looks at everything, says everything's great, but she pulls one piece of paper out. And I'm like, what's going on? She said, your borrower was 30 days late on her mortgage within the last 2 years, or on her rent within the last 2 years. And that was a deal killer. Just once. It was not going to close though. It's a 95% loan. And I was like, oh, well, what do I do? And she said, if I was you,
I'd change it.
She pulled out the whiteout and she said, I'd white it out, make a copy, stick it in the file. Underwriting will never catch it. So I did that.
Which is fraud.
Yeah, of course. So
I mean, just for people watching, people think, well, that's no big deal.
Oh, that's
a big deal to banks and lending institutions that even if you flub or lie, something's in my throat. If you flub or lie an application to a bank or a lending institution at all, intentional or not, well, it has to be intentional, right?
Maybe. Listen, I know guys that got 25 years in prison because they went into a broker's office and the broker, remember the liar loans?
No.
The liar loans are like, you don't have to provide any documents. So the broker says, you need to qualify for this loan. You need to make $30,000 a month. So I'm going to write down $30,000.
Stated income.
So
they call them liar loans.
They call them liar loans.
That's funny. That's an industry thing. You got to be a mortgage broker to probably know that.
So you sign the document, you get the loan. The broker filled everything out. I didn't intentionally try and defraud anybody. You said I didn't need to prove my income. No, you didn't, but you have to say something. And the broker's the one who determined that. And I signed the document. So he didn't intend to do it. Guess what? That guy goes to court. I mean, this guy, I was locked up in Coleman with him. He went to court. He fought it the whole way. He goes to trial. He loses. He's doing 25 years. Says it feels like he didn't do anything wrong. So,
and by the way, 25 years, if he would have pleaded guilty.
They offered him 2 or 3 years.
Yeah.
He wouldn't take it. Because he genuinely felt he didn't do anything wrong.
I can see that. I can see how he feels.
Yeah. Yeah.
Did he know though?
No, I don't. This guy, I don't think I really believe that he went in and, well, what willful blindness is, right?
Yeah.
Something's going on, but nobody's said it out loud and it's happening. So you kind of allow yourself, since nobody's articulated it, you think it's legal. Yeah. Or you allow yourself to believe that what you're doing isn't. But deep down, if you really thought about it, damn well.
So he knew damn well.
He probably did.
So that's what sucks though, because I know exactly what he feels like.
Yeah. Yeah. And honestly, if you're an entrepreneur in any way, shape, or form, there are times through that process where you're doing or saying things that are questionable. And if it works out, then you're a hero. And if it doesn't, well, then you're a scumbag, right? Like you're a fraudster.
Well, I got to back up. I don't have instant replay, but did you say if you're an entrepreneur, you got to do that? Yeah, I think sometimes, like, if you're borrowing money, you're kind of doing that whole shifty, we're going to make this much money and we're this, and you're giving this impression that you think that it's going to happen. The truth is you don't know it's going to happen, and you're asking somebody to invest in you. I mean, that's an example. So the truth is, a lot of times people that are borrowing money or starting off, they're doing a lot of kind of the fake it till you make it. Like, oh no, we've already got the investors lined up. You talk to 2 investors. You don't have them lined up. You haven't signed an agreement. So people do those things. And if they work out, they're heroes. People do, but entrepreneurship does not require that, I would argue. Okay. Only because I didn't do that. Well, that's great. And I know a bunch of people that didn't do that. But I
great.
know what you're saying. And what you're saying is there are people that do that, and they are entrepreneurs, and they do have, and by the way, some of the most successful companies out there, I bet, have origin stories like that.
Origin stories like what?
Like they were a little,
Yeah,
shady.
a little shady.
Like I know a guy, I ain't going to say his name, but I know a guy worth hundreds of millions of dollars. And he started a little bit shady.
Mm-hmm.
And now he's not shady at all because he's not an idiot, but he damn well started shady, and he knew he was starting shady. Now, I know other people that haven't, but I get what you're saying. So you got a job in the mortgage business. You saw this, and you're paying attention when you're seeing it. Like, hey, this is easy.
Yeah, I send that document in. Whatever. The loan closes. This is back when when mortgages close much quicker. So that loan closed. Like 3 days later, it's approved. 3 days after that, we're closing. We're like a week later, we're closing. I get a check for $3,500. I'm thrilled, right? So the next guy that comes in, he made $55,000. Let's say if he made $59,000, he could get the loan. So I changed the 5 to a 9. He goes through underwriting. Everything's fine. Loan closes. Next guy, he doesn't have his money, the down payment in the bank long enough. If he did, he could close the loan. He does have the down payment. So what do? I change the bank statement. Next guy, you see what I'm saying? This becomes a thing. Within 6 months, I've opened my own. And by the way, it's funny because like the first month, I closed 4 loans, which for a guy starting out doesn't know what he's doing. 4 loans was a lot.
At $3,500 a pop.
Exactly. Right. And this is in Florida 20 years ago. That was a ton of money.
Yeah, you're making some coin.
Right. Hey, listen, 10,000. If you're making $10,000 a month in Florida right now, you're kicking ass. That's a lot of money in Florida.
Really?
10
not
grand?
Well, Miami's not included, I bet.
Oh no, I wouldn't include Miami, but Miami's
yeah, because everybody I know in Miami's making 10 grand a week.
Yeah, Miami's not Florida. Florida people think beaches, Miami. Florida is backwoods, guys in pickup trucks, guys working in dairies. That's the bulk of Florida. That's
really
80% of Florida. That's not what people think of.
No, they think of Miami.
Right. So what ends up happening is I start closing. So I do the first month, 4 loans. Next one, 6. Next one, 8. Next one, 10. They make me a manager. 2 or 3 months later, I open my own place. I hire 10 or 12 guys. We're cranking out several $1 million.
You start teaching them to flub the.
Of course.
Yeah.
Of course. This is my formula. My formula is if the guy walks in the door and he's got a pulse, we're getting him a loan.
Is it because no one was checking the apps, or they were automatic approvals as long as these qualifications were written?
No, people are calling. They're calling.
Well, then how did you not get busted ASAP? Because
typically what they do when they call to verify your employment is they call your employer and they say, hi, does Brad work there? How long's he worked there? And they say, okay, great. Did you fill out this verification of employment? Yes, I did. They go, okay, thank you. Because they don't ask you to verify his W-2s because they have the W-2s. They're just saying, does he work there? Does he still work there? Yes. Okay, great. Thanks. Has he been there for 4 years? He said 4 years. Yes, he's been there for 4 years. Okay, great.
Did you flub W-2s too?
Oh, of course. W-2s, pay stubs, 1040s. I had a chick that made 1040s for me. Bank statements. I made a couple online banks where I went and figured out how. This is when GoDaddy had just come out with a system where you could design your own website. So the average person could design their own website. So I go on there, I design a bank website. So it's like southernexchangebank.com or bankofybor.com. And you could go there, multiple pages. You could call the bank. Somebody would answer. We would verify your, whatever we wanted to verify, how much money you had in the bank, what's your down payment. If you needed reserves, that we could verify your bank statements. Because if you get caught enough doing fraudulent loans, you very quickly understand what the security procedures are. Like, what are they doing to make sure these loans are okay? What are they checking? If you make a fake W-2 and you get a phone call from an underwriter saying, hey, this is fake. And you're like, are you serious? Why do you think that? Well, because we checked with sunbiz.com, .gov, which is the state of Florida government site. It's the Secretary of State for Florida that does businesses. So we checked the tax ID number and it doesn't match this business. And you go, oh, okay. So now I know next time I make one. And of course, they tell me that. And they're like, yeah, this is a fake W-2. And of course, my response is, you're telling me that my borrower gave me a fake W-2? My God, he looked me right in the face. I can't believe he did that. Well, thank you for telling me. I'll take care of this. Okay, so let's go on there. Let's find a tax ID number. Let's change the tax ID number. And we send it to another lender. And it goes through. So now I know the tax ID has to match the name of the business, has to match. We keep moving.
So they taught you.
Right. Every time they caught me, they're not calling up saying, we got you. They want it to go through. The underwriters want it to go through. The banks want to lend you the money. They tell you, and I'm a broker, so I'm in a position to shift the blame. They're like, no, we're suggesting that your mortgage broker did this. Not my mortgage broker. No, he's a good guy. He would never. Must have been the borrower. Or I say, oh, you know what? How do you know? And if they have a good enough reason that they think the broker did it, then I say, well, I'll let them go. I'll let them go.
And not only that, you found out what the brokers better not do next time. Right. So they taught you basically how to rob them.
Right. So this goes on for several years.
How much money were you making?
I don't think I was making, it's funny because I hate to say, because I'm sure I've said, I wish I knew. I mean, you have to think.
Were you rolling? You must have been, because you was getting everything approved.
I was for a guy in Florida. I have a house that back then was worth $200,000 or $300,000. Now it's probably worth close to $1 million. I hate to use these numbers because people are like, wow, that's so low. Okay, this is 20 something years ago in Florida.
Yeah.
So, I was probably making whatever, $20,000, $30,000 a month, and I'm able to do whatever I want. I'm able to go on vacation. I'm driving the vehicles I want. I'm living in houses. We've got a couple $1 million worth of real estate. My wife doesn't have to work. She just collects rent and rents out apartments.
Did you think this was never going to end?
Of course, I'm arrogant. I'm completely obnoxious.
How long did it last for?
That part of it?
Yeah.
So that part of it lasted 3 or 4 years.
Without getting caught?
No, without getting caught by the authorities.
Well, your story ends you in prison.
Correct.
This ain't prison terms. This is they're catching you, but they're not catching you.
They're
teaching you.
The banks are catching me periodically, and even when they would catch you, we had a company called Pinnacle Bank. Pinnacle Bank had caught one of my brokers who was using the same. This is difficult to understand, but I had these canceled checks, right? That made it look like you had been paying your rent for the last 24 months. So they're canceled checks, right? You know what canceled checks are. People don't use them anymore, but you know what I'm saying? It looks like it's a canceled check for, let's say, $1,100. I got 24 months worth. So if you give that to an underwriter, they think, oh, your borrower has paid his rent on time for 2 years. And all you had to do was change the name on the canceled check and, fill it out. My broker, I had multiple versions of this. One of my brokers used the same version over and over and sent it to the same lender over and over. One of their underwriters caught it, went and pulled all of his files, talked to the owner. The owner calls me and says, I've got $1 million worth of bad loans right now that we've closed with this broker. And we've got another $1 million we just sold to Household Bank.
Oh, why would they call you? Why wouldn't they call the feds?
Well, because why would you? Right now, let's say you think something's going on. You ever been through a federal investigation? Do you want the feds coming in saying, we need this, we need the feds treat everybody like they're guilty. You can be the guy trying to help the feds and they make you feel guilty. No bank wants the feds coming in and sifting through all of their files with their employees there. And who knows what these guys are doing? These are subprime lenders. Who knows what's going on behind the scene? So he calls me and he really wanted me to fire the broker. He wanted me to know. I said, okay, no problem. His name was Gary. And so Gary, I'm like, hey, Gary, I get it. And in the conversation, I remember he said, listen, Matt, it's $1 million. We've already sold $1 million. We've still got another $1 million on the books. And I went, Gary, if you're expecting me to cut you a check for $1 million, I don't have it. He goes, no. I just wanted to let you know what this guy's doing. And he's like, you got a broker there I said, a rogue broker? Because I don't know anything. And I said, right. And he goes, so I just wanted to know. And I said, okay, what are you going to do about the loans? He goes, I just want you to agree that if I sell these to Household Bank and they come back on me, because there's a clawback period, they come back on me, you'll help me get rid of them. They're all in Florida. And I went, absolutely. Like, what am I going to say? No, fuck you. You're on your own.
Yeah.
So I said, absolutely. Of course. Of
So
course.
now technically, that dude's an accomplice.
No, not just that. Ethically, he should contact Household Bank and say, we've already sold you $1 million.
100%.
Instead, what he does is he sells another $1 million.
Yeah, because he don't want to get caught holding the bag.
Right.
And he's fully aware they're fraudulent.
Right.
And he already sold fraudulently. He should have called that bank and said, hey, dude, I got to take those back. You're going to get robbed on those.
Right. But
he didn't. That makes him an accomplice. But I'll bet you he didn't do prison time, did he?
No, he didn't. But you're also saying that something that's not the way it works. So let's say you're buying a house for $500,000. And you come to me and say, Matt, I can give you $50,000 down. Can you give me $450,000? Okay, fine. And I fudge a few things to get you the $450,000. That's fraud.
Period.
Are you going to make your payments though? You still make your payments.
Yeah.
So does that have a higher likelihood of going into foreclosure? Yes, absolutely. You didn't qualify.
Yeah, I see the point.
Most of these guys still make their payments. And if they don't, maybe it goes 18 months and it goes into foreclosure. And the banks never really know that fraud has been committed because it's been 18 months and there's really no way for them to go back and figure that out. And if they do, what do they care? They're just going to foreclose on the house, throw it into the pile.
Probably happens with cars too.
Oh, I'm sure it happens with cars all the time, right?
Yeah. Fudging credit apps, get the car. The guy pays for the car. Bank's fine.
Right.
Although they did fudge the credit app.
Right. Happen. So these types of things, I bet you it happens with cars way more than mortgages. Too.
Yeah. Well, I was in that business. I was never in mortgages, but car business, I know it happened.
Right.
For sure.
So what ends up happening is, like with that guy, no problem. I tell him I'm going to fire the broker, and he sells those loans. And he actually came a couple of weeks later. He actually flew down to Tampa it was Pinnacle Bancorp was in Chicago. They closed. I wonder why. So he flew down. He took us all out to lunch. He didn't take La Fuente was the guy's name. He didn't take La Fuente. You're not going. So he takes us out, and after a few drinks, I remember he told me, he said, bro, I don't care if every loan you send me has fraud, as long as it passes underwriting and it doesn't come back on us. Because I could give a shit. Because I just need to sell these things on the secondary market. Because you have to understand, let's say for simplicity's sake, he's got $100,000 loan. He charges a fee of an underwriting fee of $400. The interest rate's 6%. Well, he's getting yield spread on that loan. So people think, oh, he made $400. No, he didn't. He's selling that on the secondary market, and that 6%, he's really getting that loan at 5%. He's telling you 6%. He's getting, for every 35 basis points, he's getting a point back. So he's selling that for, let's say, $103,000. So he made $400 plus $300 or plus $3,000. Yeah. So he made $3,400 on a loan that was perfectly packaged, that he just had to have an underwriter spend 20 minutes to look over, and fund it, and sell it on a credit line that isn't even his money. It's just a credit line from the bank. So these guys are cranking them out, right? And he's selling them right away, getting the money back. They're making a ton of money. Anyway, like I said, he came out, he said, I could care less. I continue to do this. At some point, because we don't have 6 hours, right? You know Lex Friedman?
Yeah.
I did like a 6.5 hour podcast. We don't have that kind of time. So what happened is I'd done a bunch of mortgages. Remember I told you I was married. We had a couple $1 million. So we have a couple $1 million worth of mortgages with my wife. All of these fraudulent loans. But we're making the payments, obviously. We're collecting. And some of these properties we're buying, renovating, reselling.
Yeah.
So at some point, a friend of mine who owns another mortgage company, she gets in trouble. She's doing loans for what's called a straw man scam. FBI comes in. She's been indicted. She comes to me, asks me to refinance her house using fake W-2s and pay stubs, by the way, which she provided. Get her $75,000 so she can pay her attorney. Give her attorney $75,000. The attorney comes back and says, you need to wear a wire on this guy. So
on you?
On me. So she and her husband wear a wire. They meet me at a pizza place, and they say, look, the FBI is asking questions about you and your wife. And I'm like, okay, what did you tell them? They're like, well, we haven't told them anything yet. What should we tell them? I said, well, just don't tell them the W-2s and pay stubs are fake. Don't tell them this. Don't tell them. We need to figure out what to say. You need to tell them this, tell them that. And as we're talking.
Dude, why didn't you just say, what do you mean? What are you talking about?
Because this is a friend of mine.
A close friend.
We went to Puerto Rico. We babysit each other's kids.
Is she your friend anymore?
No, but I wouldn't have any hard feelings for.
Yeah, but would you agree with any criminal listening? Number one reason people get in trouble is themselves.
Well, I mean, the number one reason that criminals get in trouble is because they're committing crimes,
Which is themselves.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the number one reason they get in trouble. And then the second reason is their mouth.
Yeah, I would say that you tend to incriminate yourself. And I would also say that 95% of people in the federal system cooperate. So the idea that you think you're going to rob a bank with 4 other guys and you're all going to get arrested and keep your mouth shut, the guy who talks last is the idiot. Everybody is going to roll over on you. The street code is a joke. Anybody that believes in the street code right now is doing life in prison. They're completely foolish. It doesn't exist. And the people that are abiding by it are going to do 30 or 40 years. You're going to do life sentences. You're going to do all the time, and your buddies are going to get out, and they're not going to send you money on your commissary. And you can't. This is what I would.
You're on your own.
You're on your own. You cannot be a scumbag, do scumbag things with other scumbags, expect to get arrested and indicted, and then expect that those scumbags are suddenly going to become loyal and they are going to stay true to you. Do that. It's foolish.
Then there's a lot of people that do make that assumption.
Right.
And it's really stupid when you say it like you did. You're doing scumbag shit with scumbags, then you're surprised when they're a scumbag.
Right. Oh, well, there's a street. You got to have a code. Wait, you got to what are you talking about, bro? If you were a decent human being to begin with, you wouldn't have been committing crimes. If I was a decent person, I wouldn't be making my living defrauding banks. You know what I would have done? I would have downsized. I would have got a smaller house. I would have got less expensive vehicles. We would have taken less vacations, and I would have gotten 2 jobs and worked harder. That's what a decent person does. A scumbag just starts saying, nah, fuck that. The rules don't apply to me. I'm going to do whatever I want to do. And you can't tell on me. Man, you're nuts.
Well, I would argue that there are people called like the mafia, for example, where they don't tell, because if you tell, that's actually worse than the 10 years you're going to get. So you might as well keep your pie hole shut. And then there's people that believe that you should, because, you're bros. Because, I'm sure there's loyal criminals out there somewhere.
Yeah. I don't
Would
know.
you?
No.
Well, they didn't hang around you, but
and by the way, I interview at least 5 or 6 criminals. I was locked up for 13 years, and
they all sung.
Everybody's singing, and the mafia's dead. Let's face it, the mafia is gone.
Bleep that out. Sorry,
gone.
mafia.
Yeah, it's a boutique gang at this point.
Well,
they're not like they were in the 70s or 80s or 50s or 60s. It's over. And I've had multiple mobsters on my channel that all cooperated.
Yeah. So what you're saying is everybody's narking. Everybody's a rat.
Right.
So you might as well rat. Would you rat?
Absolutely, I did. What am I, stupid? Here's the big problem: is initially when I got arrested. No,
who'd you rat on though?
Not arrested. Well, I'll get to it. I'll give you the quick version, right? So the quick version is these people cooperate on me. I realize in the middle of the conversation, I realize they're wired. And I tell the FBI agent to call me. Don't come in my office, because when the FBI came to their office, everybody quit. So he calls me. I say, I'm going to talk to my attorney. I'll come down. I'll meet with you. I get an attorney. I pay him $75,000.
At this point, though, real quick, at this point, I'm fucking screwed now.
Well, I don't think I'm screwed. I'm not screwed. I'm really not screwed
at all.
Dude,
you just got recorded by the FBI.
I got recorded, but my wife took out all the loans.
Yeah, but she's innocent. She don't know nothing.
Okay.
You wouldn't throw your wife under the freaking board, would you?
No, if you give me a minute, bro.
All right. I'm looking forward in the movie. Okay. This is a movie story right here.
So my lawyer talks to me, and actually it's funny because the first thing he says is, how much do you love your wife? And I'm like, and he's like, because if you cooperate against her, I said, I'm not going to do that.
Was she in on it though?
I mean, of course she knew.
Okay, so she knew.
She knows what she's doing. But what I told him was, look, I'll take a plea. I'll take the plea, and they don't charge her. And he said, okay. He said, well, look, he said, here's the thing. He said, I can probably get that done. He says, they really want you. He said, but if you I can keep you from being indicted. You haven't been indicted yet. I went, okay. Well, what do you mean? He said, what? He said, they know that you're running a mill. They know these brokers are committing fraud. He said, if you'll go and get 10 of the files that have the most egregious files you've got on the brokers you have, bring them in, talk to the FBI. It's called pretrial intervention. I can keep you from being indicted. And I went, talking about, I watched The Godfather. I'm not going to snitch. I'm no snitch. I'm absolutely not. These guys are my friends. These guys are absolutely not. I'm not going to do that.
And you taught him to do it anyway.
Yeah. Well, anyway, so
didn't you though?
Oh, I mean, I did, but let's.
So again, you taught him. All I'm saying is, I can understand why you'd be loyal at this point because number one, they're your friends and you think you're all buddy, and more importantly, or as importantly, you taught them how to do it. So you're kind of the reason they're in this mess in the first place.
Okay.
No, they could have said no, because again, I'm all about personal responsibility.
Yeah,
they are at fault at the end of the day, but just for the story.
Yeah. Okay. So, yeah, I don't think I twisted 12 grown men's arms, but I hear you. Well, they were all men. They were about half of them were women. So whatever. So I tell him, I'm not going to do that. I'll take the charge. And he goes, well, you're going to lose your license. You're going to lose your company. I said, well, I'll sell the company. I got somebody that'll buy the company. I'll take the charge. Don't charge my wife. I'll take it. Okay. Now, if I knew then what I know now, I would have gone to the Friday sales meeting with a dolly in front of everyone, scooped up a couple of file cabinets, rolled it in the back of my truck, walked back and told all of them, you guys are probably going to be contacted by the FBI soon. I suggest you get lawyers. And I would have gone and I would have told the FBI, here's 2 file cabinets filled with fraud. And I wouldn't have been charged because the moment I got in trouble, these guys were lining up to cooperate against me. Sure. And I didn't know that then, right? Like I didn't know that. I thought they were my friends. So
you were a good dude until you realized, fuck, dude.
I was a good dude until I realized that being a good dude doesn't pay. Not in fraud. You're a scammer, a con man, or a fraudster. It doesn't pay.
Yeah.
It doesn't work out.
I would agree, boys and girls. If anybody's listening, I would 100% say, I tell people all the time, dude, and I ain't an angel, just FYI. Maybe on your show, we can talk about that.
Like an angel.
But now I'm an angel.
Right.
And dude, I would rather lose everything I have and live above a 7-Eleven, working at the 7-Eleven, just to be a free person.
Oh, absolutely.
Like there is no way that you or anyone could get me in any shady business. Why? Well, because I already know what you went through, bro. And I can tell you right now is that you're always going to get caught. People are always going to narc on you. And 9 times out of 10, the reason you get caught is your own mouth. You told your buddy, hey, check this out. Don't tell anybody. And that's what got you, because that's the son of a bitch that put you down and testified. And you're like, if I just would, because you can play it back in your head and go, where did I fuck up? Well, you fucked up by doing it.
Right.
So if you get past that, well, then where'd you fuck up? Well, I told my buddy, and then I brought him in, and then he did it. And then we told my other buddy, and that's where we fucked up, because that's the guy that made it all tumble. That guy right there. If we didn't tell him, we'd still be doing it. Well, you think.
Yeah. Eventually, listen, the thing about at least fraud, I can't talk about bank robbers or anything. I don't have really that much experience with that. But, fraud, drugs, whatever. The problem with fraudsters is they're, obviously they're antisocial. But the big problem is arrogance, right? Like it's no good for me to defraud a bank and win and walk away with $500,000 if I don't get to brag about it.
Yeah.
You're narcissistic. You have to brag about it. You have to tell everybody how you have to look at me, look what I did. It's just otherwise, if that wasn't in your personality, then you'd be working a regular job.
Well, let me ask you this. Do you think you were rehabilitated with your time?
I think to a degree. I mean, let's face it. I'm always going to struggle with being arrogant. I'm always going to struggle with those things. And I mean, it's something every day that.
But do you think you could be tempted if someone said, hey, Matt, all of a sudden, motherfucker, this is round 2. You know it's illegal, but it's a big lick.
I think things are going too well for me to do that. But under the right circumstances, anybody will commit fraud, right? Somebody will. You will
I
commit
don't agree, dude.
You will commit. Okay.
I would not ever. You can try and test me.
Okay. So.
No, I don't care. 500 million, 6 billion, 31 billion we're going to get away with.
So you'd never commit a crime?
Hell, when you say a crime according to whom?
According to the federal government, you wouldn't commit a crime?
Fuck
Under the right
no.
circumstances? Okay,
No.
great. So listen to this. Here's what happens. Turns out that you've invested a bunch of your money into multiple different accounts. The entire economy goes bad. You lose everything. Guess what?
I'm planting carrots.
Right. So your wife, something happens to your wife, you end up with your kids, you're living in a car.
I wouldn't be living in a car, Matt.
You don't know that.
Yes, I do.
Okay. So here's what happens.
Dude, listen, there's
dog shit. The economy's dog shit. You don't get a job. You're starving. You're trying to keep your kids alive.
Is that what you're thinking in your head, though?
No.
Why do you go to such extremes?
Because I'm giving you the scenario that anybody under the right circumstances will commit a
keep
crime.
going. I'm in this vision of yours.
So you're in the car,
completely destitute, lack of all my skills, and like
your skills don't mean anything if there's no market. But anyway,
so you're saying it's anarchy.
I'm saying it's practically anarchy,
okay.
Right? So it's horrible. You're trying to keep your kids alive, and inside of this doorway is a table with a bunch of bread on it. If you grab one of those loaves of bread, you get to feed your kids and keep them alive another week. You're going to take the bread, bro.
Okay, so let me just again, because I tell the truth. In those circumstances, I would go the opposite of Angel. I'd go full on criminal. Like, in other words, like in these circumstances where everybody's broke, there's no jobs, it's steal or die. Well, then I'm going to steal because I'm not going to die, but everybody's stealing and there are no rules in those cases. So it would have to get to that case, but then of course I would, bro. So I'd be a mastermind criminal. I'd be a Lex Luthor like you wouldn't believe.
So the statement that I said is true. Under the right circumstances,
yes,
anybody will commit a crime. So when people say,
give him a bomb, he did make me walk that back. But you're talking about such extreme stupidity. Course, I couldn't go there. I couldn't go there with my mind. I'm telling you, dude, you could come up to me off air and me and you could be besties for the next 3 years. And you go, Brad, I got a guy at a bank. If you submit this app, he'll wire $3 billion into your account and then he's going to quit. But, and I knew, like, again, if I didn't know, I could get tangled up in shit. But if I knew, I don't care what the payoff is, Matt. I just don't. Why? Because I don't want to be where you were.
Right.
13 years, dude, you fucking lost a chunk. Did you have to do the whole 13?
I got 26 years and 4 months. And that's what my sentence was.
Now,
I only did 13.
Now, when they sentenced you, dude, did your asshole pucker and like really feel like your life's over?
Bro, I cried like a small child. You've never seen a grown man cry the way I cried. Like a 3-year-old.
What about your wife? What was she doing?
Wife.
Weren't you still married?
No. Listen.
Did you throw her under the bus?
So here's what happens. So here's the funny thing is that you're stopping at 10% of the story and you're asking questions at 10%. We got maybe 20 minutes left. So here's what happens.
We're gonna need episode 2.
So here's what happens. I get the lawyer. I'm not going to cooperate. I won't do that. And so what happens is I end up the government saying that there's $500,000 in potential fraud. I explain no, those loans didn't exceed the value of the property. We argue. I end up getting 3 years probation. I sell my company to a guy who's a CPA. He's not in the CPA. He had a master's in tax. Anyway, but he was a CPA. He was an accountant. Anyway, so I sell the company to him. He keeps me on as a consultant. He's paying me like $8,000 or $9,000 a month. So, and then, but what am I going to do? I'm in the middle of a divorce because my wife doesn't want to be married to a felon, right? So,
well, now again, can we talk about that for a minute?
Okay.
Because again, like then she ain't what they consider a down ass bitch.
No, she was not.
So as soon as you got in trouble, she said, I'm out. And she knew what was going on.
Well,
that's not a very loyal chick at all.
Wait a minute. Well, that's not what exactly happened. I was not a good husband to begin with. So she first of all, she didn't sign up. We know what she signed up for, a guy that was making money. It's an arrangement. I'm supposed to make good money. I'm supposed to be a decent human being. I'm not supposed to get in trouble. I got in trouble, whatever. she's ready to walk away. She was ready to walk away before that. I'm having affairs. I'm a douchebag. You know what I'm saying? So I didn't want to be married. You know, I'm a scumbag anyway. So I'm not behaving like a decent husband anyway. So she had no reason to be loyal to me. So, and I hear what you're saying, but that wasn't the situation. I wasn't a good person.
All right.
So we're getting divorced. I'm losing everything, rightfully so. So I'm losing everything. I'm on probation. I have no way to really make money. Now we have a couple $1 million worth of real estate, but she's getting all that. And so what I decide to do is you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to claim bankruptcy. I'm going to move into my old room at my parents' house, and I'm going to start selling cars. No, I'm just joking. That's not what I did at all. What I did was I leaned into it and I said, fuck it. If I'm already a felon, I might as well commit fraud, real fraud. Like I was doing some little stuff before. So here's what I figure out how to do. After a bunch of phone calls to Social Security Administration, I figure out how to get the Social Security Administration to issue me Social Security numbers to children that don't exist. I make a fake birth certificate and a fake shop record, and I go to Social Security and I say, my child was born 10 months ago. He doesn't have a Social Security card. They look in the system. They go, oh my gosh, you're right. We'll have one issued. They mail me one 10 days later. I then go online. I apply for credit cards in his name, but I say he's 32 years old, whatever. I get turned down, but these banks offer me secured credit cards. I pay for the secured credit cards. I make the payments for 6 months. And now I've got somebody who has a synthetic identity that has 700 plus credit scores.
How many kids did you have like that?
Well, I also start getting fake IDs and I start going into the DMV and getting them to issue me driver's licenses. That it evolves. So I would say it's probably, I don't know, 20 or so, 25.
So you had 20 identities.
No, I've had over 50 identities. With this, I did. At some point, I start, At some point, I start surveying homeless people. Don't judge me, okay? I see you judging me. Don't judge me, okay?
I'm not judging you, but it is interesting to know that, like, because your mind must have went like almost like a trapped rat.
Yeah, well, I don't, look, most people, they're like, oh, well, here's where we're at. Oh, I can't do that. They said no. It's like, okay, well, there's a way around it. There's a way around everything.
Do you think you've changed in the 20 years?
In some ways, I think I'm more appreciative. I'm more humble. And in that manner, I think that I'm better off. I'm definitely better off for having gone to prison. And I absolutely needed to go to prison. I mean, there's no doubt in my mind. And I think that prison humbled me and taught me to be, you're just better off being a decent person.
Now, did you go to a federal prison?
Yeah, of course.
What, like a FCI low?
No, initially I went to a medium security prison, it's a prison. It's what you expected. They feed you through the doors. You're locked up. You've got a stainless steel toilet and a sink combo. You've got the bunk beds, like a prison. People are getting stabbed in the yard. There's riots. It's a prison.
Well, that sounds more like state prison, but
no.
I mean, federal prison. Back in what year was this?
Well, I finally get arrested in late 2006.
But still, remember Club Fed?
Yeah, no, that's back in the 80s and 90s. That doesn't exist. Barbara Walters ruined that.
Yeah. Wouldn't have been nice, though?
It would have been great, right? I knew guys that had been in that long. They were like, oh, we used to get steak. We used to get Anyway, so what happens is I create these synthetic identities and I go into an area of Ybor City and I start buying basically crack houses, right? Like they're worth $40,000, $50,000. So I've got a synthetic identity. I buy a house for $50,000 in the name of a synthetic identity. Let's say his name is James Red. You know what doc stamps are, right?
Doc stamps?
Yeah. So if you buy a house for $100,000, you pay $700 in doc stamps. So I'm buying a house for $50,000. The doc stamps are $350. Well, what if you pay the extra doc stamps on the transaction form? They'll record the sale higher. So I pay an extra $1,050, let's say. Sometimes it's $2,000, whatever. So I buy the house for, let's say, $50,000. I pay an extra $1,050. The sale shows up in public records as a $200,000 sale. So in public records, if you look and say, hey, how much did James Red buy that house for? It says $200,000. So if James Red buys this house here and across the street he buys another house, and 2 blocks away he buys one, and then Brandon Green buys 4 houses on this block at half a mile away, and then Lee Black buys a bunch of houses over here.
You inflate the market.
Area goes up. So after I'd been doing this about a year, Forbes reported that Ybor City, the zip code 33605, was one of the top 20 fastest growing zip codes in the nation, because I took the median price range of being about 100,000 to about 250 in about a year.
Can people do this today?
Oh yeah, this is perfectly.
I don't understand. Like that sounds like stupidity. The government lets you just pay an extra fee and say you paid whatever you want to say you paid.
No, I get it. The government's never done anything stupid. I hear what you're saying, but yeah, that's how it works. Yeah. You can do it today. There's no, and by the way, here's the thing.
So if I go buy a house for $100,000 and I want it recorded as I bought it for $200,000, I can do it. And that's not illegal.
No, paying additional taxes is not illegal.
I know, but like, that's just dumb. Like that's a loophole. Why wouldn't you would think that once you expose that stupidity, because you inflated a neighborhood is what you did.
Right. But why would, it doesn't cost the government anything.
And it wasn't illegal.
Right. Doesn't cost the government anything.
I know, but but imagine, like, dude, people can inflate neighborhoods by doing what you just said.
Absolutely.
And that's legal. They wouldn't go to prison for it.
No, you would go to, it becomes illegal if you're doing it in furtherance of a scheme, but that in and of itself is not illegal.
But if you're like, hey, I'm going to raise this neighborhood and I'm going to sell all these houses for 5x because I inflated the neighborhood is what you did. But inflating the neighborhood it was not against the law.
No,
because you can do it.
No.
And the fact that you did it so many times that you basically own the neighborhood, and now the neighborhood looks as if the average house goes for 250. So when someone buys the house for 250, you just bought it earlier for 50, but you said 250, they helped you say it.
Right. And
now you've defrauded somebody essentially, but not really, because you didn't do anything wrong. It's legal.
Well, no, because the bank had their opportunity to do due diligence. They sent their appraiser in. Their appraiser looked at the comparable sales. Their appraiser said, yeah, the place is worth 250. The comparable sales around here are going for 250. It's a neighborhood that's being gentrified. And, the government's always, and the great thing about Ybor City was that the city of Tampa had just put like $80 million into a complex not far from this area. So it looked like it's being gentrified. So look what's happening. It's working.
Yeah.
Look at these prices. So, listen, that's nothing. Like, I mean, if that's blows,
dude, you're like Lex Luthor of real estate and mortgage broker.
So listen, if that's blowing your mind, here's what happens. I do this, I borrow $11.5 million. So let me tell you, the basic scheme is this. James Red buys 5 houses, maybe 6 houses. I forget what he bought. Oh, by the way, you'll love this. Have you ever seen the movie Reservoir Dogs?
Yeah.
So most of my guys were named after, they were like Mr. White, Mr. Black, Mr. Red, Mr. Green, Mr. So there was like David Silver, Lee Black. Remember Mr. Pink, Mr. White? Okay. So
why I gotta be pink?
Huh? Yeah, exactly. I never did a Mr. Pink though, because I've never met anybody named Mr. Pink. So, anyway, so I do this. So this guy goes in and he's buying these houses. Everything's going up through the roof. Bought a house for $50,000. It's appraising at $200,000, and then he borrows money from the bank. My guy's got W-2s and pay stubs, which I made, which I can verify. He's got a bank account, which I can verify. He's got, and at this point, I'm able to get IDs, open bank accounts. So he applies for a loan, gets the loan. They lend him $180,000, let's say. All of them were different. Some were like $230,000, some were $150,000, whatever. So let's say $180,000. He borrows that on all 5 houses. He's borrowed like $900,000. He's got maybe $200,000, $300,000 in them. So he's just made $600,000, and we make the payments, right? So I make the payments. I keep saying we like he's a real person. So I make the payments for 3 or 4 months, and then I stop paying. And the other things I would do is I would go ahead and get real credit cards. By this point, he's got 700 credit score. So I can get about 40, 50,000 in credit cards. I can get another 40, 50,000 in personal loan. That's another 100,000, but regardless. So it ends up being about $1 million each one of these guys. Each guy's worth about $600,000 or $700,000. I make the payments. I stop paying. Places go into foreclosure. The banks start to look, right? They're starting to write letters. Hey, you owe us money. What's going on? I then would go get an article
Did all of them have the same address?
No, of course not. These are all different addresses.
So you did it high end.
Of course, everybody's got separate phone numbers. Some of them worked at the same place. Like 2 or 3 would work at one place, 2 or 3 would work at another place. And what I would do is I'd go get an article of, let's say, a 20-car pile up on I-4. And somebody was injured and they were life flighted to Tampa General Hospital. I would retype that article, put my guy's name in it, print it out on newsprint, cut up the newsprint, make a copy on the copier, and then write a letter with that article, right, to the collection department from my borrower's fictitious sister, saying, as you can see from this article, my brother was in a horrible accident. He's currently in a coma. The doctors say even if he wakes up, he'll never work again. That's why he hasn't been making his payments. So if you have to foreclose on the house, I completely understand that. We're not going to fight it. Not that they give a shit, but that's something that a sister that has no idea would do. And they get it and they put that in the system. Now they have a reason why he didn't pay. They foreclose on the property. They put the property back on the market. 6 months later, or a year later, it sells for $80,000. They've lost $100,000. They have no idea they were scammed. I keep the money. I keep going. So the quick version is I borrowed $11.5 million doing that scam. At some point, I'm on probation. At some point, I start doing this in other cities, Orlando.
Are you telling people?
I've got partners. I'm branching out, right? Big mouth, right? So people are coming in. Can I want to do something, bro? Okay. So I get my buddy Travis. He's doing this over here with a guy named Michael White in Orlando. We're in a scam. We're going to make a couple $1 million. He gets up to about 400,000. I start doing it with this girl over here. We borrow 200,000 or 300,000. She goes to a closing with an ID that has her photo on it. Listen to how this and this. This is one of those things where people say, could you do this now? Would you do this now? I wouldn't do it for many factors, but here's the problem. It's the fly in the ointment that gets me. That's what gets me. How do I account for this? Somebody who's accounted for all the things that could happen. How do you account for this? I have a girl that goes in and signs all the documents. She's borrowing a bunch of mortgages on this property. She signs for one mortgage. She goes into the next closing to sign. The title person looks at the ID and says, this isn't you. She goes, what? That's me. She's like, no, it doesn't look like you. Brad, it's her. The photo's her. She asks another title company person to come in. Does that look like her? She's like, yeah, that's her. She goes, no, I don't think it looks like her. And she's like, what are you talking about? The woman says, listen, I'm going to make some phone calls. Here's your ID. Make some phone calls. I'm not going to give you the check. Make some phone calls. I'll let you know. I feel like something's wrong. She's like, what? So she gets up and leaves. Now, keep in mind, we just closed another one. We got the check for like $110,000 something, right? Like, I don't know. It was over 100,000. And she's like, oh, this is what just happened. I said, oh, we're done. We're burned. She's going to start making phone calls. No, like this scam isn't set up to be bulletproof.
No.
And I said, no. She says, well, we need to cash this check. I said, no, it's done. It's done. She goes, look, let's give this check. She goes, can you deposit it in one of your bank accounts? I said, hell no. I'm making millions here. I'm not going to do that. She goes, well, what about Travis? I said, well, you can call Travis. I'm not doing it. She calls Travis. Travis goes, no problem. I'll deposit it in my bank account. She deposits in Travis's bank account. A couple days later, the manager of the bank calls Travis and said, hey, listen, he thinks his name is Michael White. He goes, Michael, can you come in? I know you deposited that check, but it was over 100,000. We need to witness we need to witness the endorsement on the back because it was over 100,000. It's a bank policy. I'm sorry. And he's like, yeah, no problem. He goes back to the bank. They arrest him.
Of course they do. He's dumb.
So listen, the really funny thing is, like, if I told the whole story, like I was yelling at him as well. He's going there. Don't go in the bank. Something's wrong. I've deposited many checks over $100,000. I've never had to come back. And he's like, he said, no, this guy's cool. He's not cool. It's not cool. You're not friends with the fucking manager. So he goes in, he gets arrested regardless. I bond him out the next day. I get him an attorney. And this was a state charge. I bond him out. I give $15,000 for his attorney. And then he starts coming in and he's working me. Hey, bro, I don't have any money. Of course, I'm sorry that you had to come and ask. That's my fault. Here's $5,000. That holds you over? Yeah, no problem. Then he comes back a little bit like, yo, bro, I want to start a tree trimming business that he runs to this day. And he's like, I really need a one of those boom things. Of course, what does that cost? He's like, I could get one for like $5,000. Absolutely. Here's $5,000. He comes back a little bit. I needed one of those chippers. What's that cost? About $10,000. Of course, here's $10,000. Listen, he gets me for another $30,000. So, which is fine. It's fine. But the whole time he's working with a task force that's been set up, that he helps get set up. He's working with them. I'm still committing fraud. So what happens is one day, a buddy of mine who's a sheriff's deputy, he comes in and he goes, Matt, can I talk to you for a second? I go, yeah, what's going on? He said, listen, do you know somebody in Orlando? I went, not really. Why? Somebody got arrested? And I went, well, kind of. Why? What's up? He goes, so I used to date this chick on the Tampa Police Department. She came by my house today about 6 o'clock in the morning. I'm like, okay. He goes, she was on a task force that was recently handed over to the FBI. Okay. Because the task force is on you. They're going to come arrest you in a couple of days. Keep in mind, I'm on federal probation right now for 3 years. Like, that's not good for me. I know I'm going to prison now. So I'm thinking to myself, holy shit. And Travis has been working with these guys for 3 or 4 months, maybe 6 months. I don't know. So he goes, what are you going to do? I said, oh, I'm fucking leaving, bro. So in about a day and a half, I'm able to get out about 80,000 in cash. And we have a couple million in the bank. We're building new houses. We're buying real estate. But I got a day. How much money can you get out in a day? It's tough. So I get out 80 grand and I go on the run. I immediately go to Atlanta. I rent a house from somebody. The guy's name was Michael Shanahan. I make a fake ID in Michael Shanahan's name. I make an ID that says I'm Michael Shanahan. I go downtown to public records and I find out that he's got 2 mortgages on his property from Bank of America. I create, this will blow your mind. I create a satisfaction of mortgage for both mortgages. He's got a first mortgage and a second mortgage. He's got like a HELOC. So I create a satisfaction of mortgage from Bank of America for both those documents or both those mortgages. And then I record them in public records. So now I'm living in a house as Michael Shanahan that doesn't have any mortgages on it. So I didn't pay off the mortgages. I just create a fake satisfaction because that's how it works, believe it or not. Right now, your mortgage on your house might be $800,000, let's say, or $1 million. I don't know. I can go right now and create a 1-page document, notarize it saying I'm from Federal Credit Union, whoever lent you the money, and I can file it in public records and your mortgage will disappear. You own the mortgage free and clear. So I'm living in this guy's house as Michael Shanahan. I call 3 hard money lenders. You know what a hard money lender is. They show up at different times. One guy shows up at 10, one shows up at 1, one guy shows up at 4. They all look at the house. They go, oh, the house is worth about $200,000. I go, yeah. What are you trying to borrow? And I said, I'd like to give about $150. And they go, yeah, I'll lend you $150. So I schedule a closing at 3 different title companies and I close all 3 loans at the same time. $450,000. I actually got less than that. There's closing costs, whatever. Let's say I get $400,000. I get about $400,000. Put that money in the bank. I withdraw that money out of the bank and I then take off. That's when the Secret Service shows up. And by the way, at this point, there are newspaper articles in the Tampa Tribune, the St. Petersburg Times.
With your picture?
Oh, with my photo.
So you're like a catch me if you can dude.
Right now it's an issue now.
They're hunting for you.
Yeah. So John Doe warrants go out, but they very quickly put it together. I take off. I go to Charlotte, North Carolina. We get in like a condo downtown Charlotte. Very nice.
Who's we?
Actually, I brought my girlfriend with me. I didn't want to mention her. Not that I haven't mentioned her before, but it slows everything down. So I got this chick with me who's fucking insane. Been dating her like a month. She'll tell you 3 months.
Were you guys doing drugs?
No, I don't do drugs. I've actually never done drugs. I've never smoked a cigarette. I've never drank, and I've never smoked pot. I've never done anything. My father was an alcoholic.
Maybe you should have.
I should have. I did have a prescription for Xanax, but it's just when I was like super anxious because I had some anxiety issues, as I'm sure you can understand.
Yeah. So when I meet people like you, just the first thing in my head, and I'm sure if anyone's listening, they're thinking like, so are you reformed or are you still, looking for the freaking next thing? Because now you're like an internet personality. This is a long time ago. You got to have changed by now.
Yeah, I'm all better. I mean,
oh shit!
I'm good.
Hey.
I would be stupid to do something now. Right?
Okay, so and again, we can keep going. The rest of the time was yours, but I like this better. So, in my mind, now I'm getting to the point where why you're so wanted. You're not that bright, by the way, because dude, you thought you were, but you weren't that bright because dude, you're leaving trails everywhere.
Oh yeah. Absolutely.
So you're cooked, and then they come nab your ass and they say, okay, you're going away for 26 years. And you went away for 26 years, and then you got out at some point. Now, when you got out, did you learn your lesson, or were you looking for the scam to get on your feet?
Bro, I just got out 5 years. I've been on paper. I just got off probation in July. So no, I mean, I got out 5 years ago. I went to a halfway house for 3 months. I saved as much money as I could. I lived in someone's rooming house for 18 months, and I started doing podcasts. And then I started my own podcast.
What made you start doing podcasts?
So when I was locked up, I wrote a memoir. And then I started writing guys' true crime stories. I got some guys in Rolling Stone magazine. I optioned their film rights. I got a book deal. I wrote a book. I wrote several books. I got two book deals. I wrote the memoir. Have you ever seen the movie War Dogs with Jonah Hill?
Just talked to the real War Dog yesterday.
Who's that? David Packouts.
Yeah.
Okay. He's been on my show. So Ephraim Deveroli, the guy that was played by Jonah Hill.
Yeah.
I was in prison with him, and I wrote his memoir. So I got a book deal for his memoir.
Was that War Dogs?
No, War Dogs was taken from an article in Rolling Stone magazine.
Oh, okay.
Although Deveroli alleged that it was War Dogs.
What was Deveroli saying? Because I heard what David said.
So you saw the movie.
Yeah.
Jonah Hill's character of Ephraim Deveroli makes him look soft and cuddly in comparison to the real Deveroli. He is he is not a nice, wonderful, trustworthy person at all. Yeah.
If he got out and wanted to catch up, would you meet him for a drink?
I'd meet anybody. I'd have dinner with Stalin if he wanted to. I've eaten with serial killers. Like, what do I care, bro? I mean,
So that was only 5 years ago.
Well, Deveroli did get out. He's out. He only did a few years.
Yeah, but you 5 years ago, you were just getting out.
Yeah, I was just getting out. I wanted everybody, when I was about to get out, everybody kept telling me, you should start a true crime podcast. And I'm like, I don't know, what does that mean? I've never seen a podcast. I've never been on YouTube at that point. YouTube had just come out a year before I got locked up. People were putting their home movies on it, right? Like, I've never been on it. And so people were telling me about YouTube. They're telling me about podcasts. They're trying to explain it to me. I'm in prison. I can't listen to a podcast. I don't know what that is. So I get out. I'm like, yeah, I'll look into it. So I end up getting in touch with a guy named Danny Jones. He runs a podcast. It's called Danny Jones Podcast now, but it was Concrete. And I call him and he answers a bunch of questions, and this is how it works. And he tells me, and I'm like, okay. And he says, why don't you come on the podcast and tell your story? And I was like, all right. So I go on the podcast, and I don't really know how it works. I don't know what 20,000 views or 5,000 views. I don't know what that means. So I'm looking at it, and he's got some subscribers, but I don't know how it works. So I go on his podcast and I tell the story. It takes about 2 hours. I walk in, I said, how long do you, he goes, I don't know. How long does it take? I said, man, I got a 5-minute version. I got a 45-minute version. I got an hour version, 2 hour. What do you want? He goes, 2 hours. I said, okay, 2 hours and 15 minutes later, we're done. And I remember he told me, he said, bro, you need to start a podcast. He said, I can't promise you that this is going to blow up, but I'm telling you, you got an amazing story, and I think it will. And I think you need to start a podcast now. And I went, I don't have anything. I don't have a camera. I don't have nothing. And he was like, you got an iPhone. They got good cameras. You should just start making videos, posting them. And it was the best piece of advice that I did not listen to ever. Because I say, I'm not going to do that. I want a professional. I want to be, this is what I want. I want to be Brad Lea. Look at this place. This is what I deserve this. So like an arrogant ass, and I'm living in someone's spare room. I'm living in a rooming house, by the way. And I got a cop who's going through a divorce living in the room next to me. So I'm living in a rooming house. I don't listen to Danny, who clearly knows what he's doing, but I know better. So I don't do that right away. And that video gets over 2 million views. I go on, Patrick Bet David flies me out. He gets 2 million plus views. I go on Soft White Underbelly, gets a couple million views. I did about 10 million views on videos before I ever started a podcast. Do you have any idea how much money I pissed away? How much of an opportunity I blew? Well,
you might not have got that attention.
If I had a podcast.
Well, yeah, but they had an audience that was listening.
Right,
if you started your own, they wouldn't have been listening.
No, but they would have looked for me.
Who?
The people that were interested in Matt Cox would have said, and if I at some point I'd said, hey,
I
have a podcast, they would have flooded there.
Oh, yeah.
That's right. I probably have 1 million subscribers right now, which I did. It was just stupid. I'm saying it was arrogance, and I was giving good advice that I did not listen to because I didn't want to listen to the guy who is already successful in that. Like, come on, how stupid is that?
Well, dumb. But I tell people all the time, especially in Lightspeed, people are trying to build, intellectual property and brands and guru type, I'm an expert type people. And I tell them all, do you have a podcast? They're like, no. And I'm like, dude, why wouldn't you have a podcast? Yeah. They say, well, everybody's kind of got one. And I'm like, well, first of all, right. You don't. So everyone doesn't, number one. Number two, when I started this one, everyone said, well, everyone's got a podcast. And I said, I don't care. There's people coming in these studios and I have an opportunity to sit them down and just talk to them and just pick their brain about business and shit. So like, that's what I'm going to do. So when they came into film, I just sit them down and start talking to them. Next thing you know, the old podcast is like actually got listeners.
Right.
And next thing you know, it's like, holy shit, dude, there's a lot of listeners. I'm starting to get recognized at airports. Like everyone should have a podcast.
No, but I listen, I agree. And here's the thing, what Danny told me when I was like, oh, all I have is my iPhone. And, he was like, yeah, great. He said, start with
there.
That.
Yeah.
And I went, no, it's not, it didn't look good. He said, this is the great thing is if you start it there and it gets better and better, then people will be able to look back and they'll be able to say, I was following you when you were making bad videos on your iPhone. He's like, and he's like, and in a year from now or 2 years, when it's a professional operation, they can say, wow, you started in your kitchen with your iPhone. That's amazing. But I didn't do it because I'm a jackass. So I'm, like I said, I was writing those stories. I wanted to start a podcast. I get a bunch of views. And so finally I realized I don't have a choice. Like I'm going to have to start a podcast. Do you know one of the people who pushed me to start a podcast?
PBD.
No, he's sitting in the green room right now. Tyler.
How'd you know Tyler?
He saw me on Concrete. He called me up and said, hey, you need to start a podcast. Have you started a podcast? I can't find a podcast. And I'm like, no, I haven't. I don't have the equipment. I don't this, I don't that. He pushed me and I resisted and I resisted. And it took me a year after getting out of prison to start one. So I finally started with a shitty $300 camera. And then another guy comes up. You're going to love this. Matter of fact, are you okay if I cry a little bit? Because I can't tell this story without tearing up, bro. That's how fucking, listen.
Do whatever you want.
So I end up, a guy contacts me and says, listen, man, he said, I've been watching your stuff. And he doesn't want anybody to know that, so I'm not going to mention his name. He went to prison. This guy's probably worth $30-40 million. Went to prison, doesn't want to know. Anybody know? He said, I know you can make a comeback. And I love your stuff. I love your personality. He goes, what do you need to start this podcast? And I went, I mean, bro, I've got an iPhone. Like, I need Final Cut Pro, and I need a computer that it can run on. I'm using a $300 used computer that won't run it. And I've got a bootleg Final Cut Pro. That's what I'm using right now to put up the videos. That's what I was telling him, like that. And it's true. And
was it all just video, or were you uploading it to audio?
No, I was uploading I was uploading just to YouTube.
Okay. So again, just for the point of distinction, a podcast is not a YouTube video.
Well, a podcast. Well, okay. So sorry. They were YouTube videos of me just telling stories.
So you were making videos.
I'm making videos on but everybody's saying you need to interview other criminals, which is what I wanted to do. So I'm like, well, here's the problem. I said, he goes, what do you need? I said, I need a more powerful laptop, and I need a Final Cut Pro. I need an up-to-date Final Cut Pro. And that's like $1,000 piece of software. And I said, and I need a laptop that can run it and can keep it. And he's like, okay, well, how much? So what do you need? He goes on his computer and he's like, okay, so you need this and this and this. He goes, okay, that's a MacBook. It's
$5,000.
It's going to be, it was like about just under $4,000. He said that, and I'm going to load it with Final Cut Pro. And so there it's like $5,000. It's like $4,000. I think it was like $4,000, $5,000. And he said, okay, give me your address. I'm thinking this isn't showing up. Listen, 4 or 5 days later, it shows up. He just gave me this thing. I take it. I start working with it. I'm using it. I'm posting videos. And finally, I've saved enough money because I need to have a cushion. So I move out of the rooming house. I get a 1-bedroom apartment and I set up a podcast studio. And then this is Tyler.
See, now you make it sound like this was a long time ago. This is within the last 5 years.
A few years ago. No, this was parts 3 years ago. And then Tyler, who's been calling me periodically, pestering me to do this. I say, okay, Tyler, here's what's going on. I go, I've got the thing. I'm setting it up right now. He's like, well, what do you need to do this? I said, I've got a 3 camera setup. I need somebody that will edit the videos. Oh, I can get you that. I said, no, that will work for free. And he goes, okay, let me find somebody. Tyler, you know, Graham Stephan is.
Yeah.
Graham Stephan ran a contest a bunch of people sent him videos. He had like a contest. He said, I contacted several of the people in the contest. One of the guys lives in Lakeland, which is a 45-minute drive from you. I talked to him. He'll meet with you. And I said, yeah, but does he realize he's not going to probably make any money right away? I can give him a percentage of what it makes. And he's like, you can explain all that. I already told him. He wants to meet you. He's looked at your numbers. He looked at the other videos, saw the views you're getting. I said, okay. I meet the guy. That guy's name is Colby. Colby says, I explained to Colby, listen, bro, here's what's going on. The channel right now, it made $300. This month it's probably going to make 600, maybe. I need to start interviewing people. I'm running out of my bullshit stories, and people are going to watch me forever. They want to see me interview people. And he goes, okay. And I said, I looked at your analytics. I think we can make this work. And Colby's got a wife and a kid. And he's like, I want to do YouTube. I'm ready to quit my job. Am I going to be like, how many shitty things have I fucking done? I'm going to let this guy quit his fucking job. And I'm like, yo, bro, listen, let me be very clear with you. The channel's making $300 to $600. It's barely making any money. The best I can offer you, because I can get a regular for $2,000 a month. I can get an editor. I can edit this shit myself.
You can do it for 100 a week on virtual. Right.
Well, I can figure out another way, but I'm not going to be able to do what I want. So I said, look, here's what we'll do. You get up to the first $2,000 the podcast makes. You get 40% after that. I get 60%. And I said, but you have to understand, at the rate we're going, you may not be making you may be making $200 or $300 for the next year.
Yeah.
And we sign a contract and you agree to it. And he goes, I don't have a problem with that. I can make it work. He's sick of his job, doesn't want to do this the rest of his life. Worked for a trucking company. He's like, yeah. He's like, at this point, if I don't get out of my trucking company job, I'll be the rest of my fucking life. Because I don't want to do that. And he's talked to his wife. They're ready to bite the bullet and go in. So the first month, it actually makes, he said, $600. He has me change the name of the channel, right? Because it was just Inside True Crime. So he says, no, people are searching Matt Cox. So it needs to be Matt Cox Inside True Crime. Okay, fine. First, it's like $600. Then it's like 12. Then it's like 21. It's like 3 months he went before he hit it, I think. So no, didn't quite. It was 18. Then it was like 24.
How many episodes a day?
A day? We're doing 1 2 or 3 hour episode, and we're breaking it into two videos a week. So then it's 2,800. Then it's 3,400. Then it's 4,100. Then you see where
Did the 2 videos cliff hang and like he did all that?
Yeah, no, he really doesn't even listen. The first few videos he's doing and the thumbnails, like, we don't know what we're doing, bro. So it's doing well. Here's the problem though. To get the first fit, I called my buddy who gave me the laptop, and I said, listen, man, here's the issue. And I said, listen, I got a problem. He goes, what's the problem? Tell me. I said, the problem is I'm using cameras that shut off every 20 minutes. You know that camera?
Yep.
I forget the name. And he goes, I said, I need to get these Sony ZV-1s. They're made for podcasting. They're made for shooting. And he's like, okay. I said, I need a switcher. I told him everything I need. I said, it's going to cost, it's like $3,500 or $3,000. Let's say 3,000. And he goes, okay. And I said, I mean, I could put it on a credit card. I guess I could. I said, but the truth is, I'd like for you to buy them and let me make payments. I'll be paid off in 10 months. He goes, no problem. And I'm like, okay. He buys the cameras, has them sent to my house, the switch, everything. We have a full setup. I've got a podcast and it's working. I made 3 payments. The third payment, he calls me up. It's December. And he goes, hey, I got your payment. I'm going to cash the check. I say, yeah, okay, no problem. And he goes, but your Christmas present is payment forgiveness. You don't owe me any more money. I can't even tell you what that fucking meant to me. I was so fucked up. Like, I'm making no money. I'm struggling. I got a $1,400 a month payment on my one bedroom. You know, my podcast is in my living room. I'm painting all day because I'm doing paintings to sell the paintings so I can make money. Nobody wants to hire me, by the way. You know, you can't get a job. I'm a felon, right? I'm the worst kind of felon. I'm the kind of felon that you type up. You don't get the search back. You just have to put in Google. They got nothing good to say about me. I got 2 episodes of Dateline. I got 1 episode of American Greed. Nobody says anything nice. I got a bunch of podcasts where I'm talking about committing fraud. So we start doing the podcast, but it starts working. It's a grind and it takes time. But after a year, it's paying my bills, paying Colby's bills. We get into the place I'm in now. I rent
just from ad roll, or you getting sponsors, or
nobody. We get no sponsors because sponsors don't want to. We're now getting sponsors. Last 6 months we've been getting sponsors, but prior to that, the sponsors don't want to be on a podcast that's interviewing guys that rob banks, guys that, you know, they're there for what? Drugs,
did you get any murders
Ponzi
yet?
scheme. No, I don't really do murder. Like, they're mostly, I say, smart crimes. Not that there are
white collar scams.
No, a lot of them are drugs. They're drugs, or they're smugglers, or, you know, that kind of thing. Like, they're not just. It's not just white collar. It's hard to get white collar guys because most white collar guys go to prison. They want to get out and start their life over, so they don't want to get on this thing and talk. They want to forget about that and move away. Right?
Why? They could make their message.
I've had this conversation. I'm just saying that some people, or maybe their wives are embarrassed, or they don't want to embarrass their kids, or they have a 1,000 excuses. You know, look at Luke. Luke came on. Luke was great.
Luke who?
Luke Lug.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, Luke Lunk. Yeah, he's a freaking bank robber.
Yeah, he had a great story.
Yeah, his story's freaking crazy, isn't it?
It is, and it was great. He was great at it.
And when you're sitting there talking to him, like, I don't like that's why I was saying, Luke who? What are you talking about? Like, I don't connect him with a bank robber.
No.
But he's a bank robber.
Yeah.
That's
he was great.
crazy.
He was great. You know,
but that was a long time ago. Your shit's fairly recent, bro. You're like fresh out the old box almost.
Oh, I thought you meant my crimes. I was like, well, they're old, but yeah, I just got. Oh, listen, I'm on probation. I got my probation officer coming to see me, and she's walking in. And they're in my room, or my.
You're lucky they're allowing it.
Yeah, they're allowed, and technically, they'll tell you you're not allowed to be around other felons. But I'm interviewing, and I'm also making my payments too, which are killing me. I'm making payments on my restitution. I still owe $6 million. So, you know, I'm making payments. I'm doing this. It takes about a year or two. It starts to take off. We start to have a good video here. The numbers start going up. And then over the last year or so, it's over 500,000 subscribers. When at first I'm begging people for guests. I'm begging you to come do this. Now people are flying in from Alaska. They're paying their own. Like, I'm like, you understand that we don't pay, we don't reimburse. I can't put you up in a room. They're like, absolutely not, bro. Like, just to come on, I'll fly myself out.
They want to tell their story.
They want to tell their story, and they want to tell their story to me because I'm
a brethren.
Yeah, right. I'm not going to judge you. You did some fucked up things. I did some fucked up things.
Do you judge their stupidity?
Oh yeah, of course. But you know, I laugh about the things that they did, and they laugh about it. Listen, there's nothing better than some guy who will come on and with self-effacing humor and knows. Listen to, you think that's stupid? Listen to what I did next, and then they tell you that, and you see what I'm saying? Those are the guys that are the best. That they own it. The guys that sit there and they're like, well, you don't understand. I was on drugs, or that wasn't really my fault. So the way the law works. Stop, bro. You ran a fucking Ponzi scheme. Stop it.
They haven't taken personal responsibility yet.
Absolutely. You're better off to just walk out the door and absolutely, it was all my fault. It was all my fault.
You ever heard of Wes Watson?
Of course.
You want him on your show?
No.
How come? He's a criminal.
Because I don't think he's a good person. And most of these people I think are great people. You know, and Wes Watson yells at people and belittles people.
Yeah, but he really doesn't. Like, that's almost like, I don't want to say it's an act because he's not acting, but like, I've had him on the podcast several times, and dude, he's cool, dude. And what he's saying with mindset and shit, it's all legit laws of success type things. I've heard the stories and I've seen the internet, and he's beating up this guy in the gym. Well, again, if you watch that video, that dude walked over and got in his fucking face. Like, dude, why would you do that? Like, you don't walk over to a group of dudes, especially convicts and get in their face. Like, dude, he asked for that. Now, the fact that he beat his ass, well, guys, I mean, come on, dude. If I walked over to a big O tatted up ex-con and got in his face and didn't expect my ass to get beat, no, dude, he was trying to get that video or something. There's more to the story. But all I know is when everybody says Wes, because there's a lot of people that say Wes is a bad guy. I've always seen him be kind to everybody. But I've never seen the bad side from what I reportedly hear. Just like if someone said, dude, Matt Cox, why would you interview him? That guy's a fucking crook. Well, number one, I don't hold you accountable for what you did. Why? Well, because you went and paid your price. Now you're back. And dude, if you're smart, you'll stop fucking around. And it sounds like hopefully this podcast blows up into probably TV show. Like you could end up being a fucking daily TV show host, worldwide known, and fucking everybody be like, you'd like that though, wouldn't you? That's where you want it to go. No.
Well, no, that would be, obviously I'm not stupid. I mean, I of course that would be great, but the truth is that I have a great life right now. And and I want that to happen, but it doesn't keep me up at night. If it happens, I mean, I've optioned my life rights.
Yeah, but you got a good thing going right now is all I'm saying.
Right. I have a good
legal.
Thing going. I'm right. Absolutely. Did you want me to respond to the Wes Watson
thing? If you fuck that up, Matt, I'm going to go, dude, are you dumb? Like you had it fucking made. Just keep interviewing and fucking, that's all legal shit.
For 4 years. I have no reason to stop.
And you know what's fucking crazy is, dude, this could end up paying you way more than you ever scammed.
No, I agree. But listen, if it pays my bills and I do what I like and I get to interview these people and that's great. And I love doing it. You know, then great. That's what I want to do. Did you want me to respond to the Wes Watson thing?
Yes.
Okay. Wes Watson, I'm sure you saw the video where he was on stage with Fresh and Fit.
And where he was messing with that pudgy dude.
Where you stopped bullying, where he was bullying.
Yeah, he was being a dick.
He was being a dick, right? He was bullying the guy.
Yes.
I basically heard, like, he's one of these guys, kind of like the Grant Cardone thing. If you're not making more than $400,000 a year, you're a loser. Are you fucking serious? So the guy that
but that's marketing. Dude.
Wait a minute. So the guy that drives a truck and delivers my groceries is a loser. The guy that drywalls is a loser. The guy that puts the electrical in my house, the plumber, the teacher, the all of these people are losers. That's a fucking scumbag thing to say.
That is. But it is also marketing.
And Wes Watson has the same thing. It's you're fat, you're weak, your priorities are not my priorities. I know guys that are worth millions that are fucking miserable. And I know guys that are married that make 50, 60,000 a year. Their wives work. They have 2 kids. They teach their little league teams for their kids. They're there for every single recital. And they're the happiest people in the world because their version of success is different than yours. And guess what? They don't have abs.
Yeah, but don't you agree? Because I'm the kind of guy that, like, I wouldn't just come out and say, bro, you're fat. Okay. You need to get your fat fucking ass in shape. You need to quit being a bitch and you need to fucking sharpen up, bro. But I would if I really cared about you, because let me tell you something. Love ain't lies. I learned that from Wes, by the way, that thing. I love it too, because dude, if I really care about you, I'm going to tell you the truth. And if the truth is you're fat, I don't have to say it like a dick in the first place, but like, I think he's to the point where he's just fucking cutting to the chase, because that guy that he bullied apparently lost weight. And, you know, apparently if you ask him, supposedly it woke his ass up. Now, I thought it was a dick move. I thought in my mind when I was watching it, you know, I was thinking, dude, like you fucking hammered him. Well, I wouldn't have done it and you wouldn't have done it.
Right.
But it made him lose 50 pounds. Like, do you think though, there's where I'm going with it. Do you think that, like, because they call it fat shaming, let's just use that because he was doing a lot of that. We say you got tits, but like, and I've had tits and I'm still just getting rid of my tits. But at the end of the day, when Wes is saying you got tits, what he's trying to do is fucking guilt you into fucking waking up and realizing, dude, you could be better. Cause on the same breath, dude, he'll turn around and say, dude, you could be fucking more and you could be. And he's trying to snap you out of it. Do you think fat shaming, if it works, is okay?
I think he's a poor communicator. I think if you have a good message, You don't need a fucking gimmick. And he's got a good message, by the way. By the way, when Wes first came out, and I watched some of his videos by mistake, but I watched the videos, he had a good message. He's probably still got a good message.
What was it?
The message was to, wake up early, work out,
Get some habits.
be a man. Yeah, exactly.
Quit being
Listen, honestly, the same thing that Jordan Peterson says Jordan Peterson says it in a better way. Make your bed. Be clean, be organized, set a schedule, stick with the schedule, make it a priority, be a man.
Don't miss.
Right, exactly. Don't settle for your excuses. You have your priorities, you shoot with your priorities, and everything else doesn't matter. Like, okay, fine. Be a good communicator and say that. Like, Wes is an amazing specimen. He's in amazing shape. He's not stupid. You're using the bully mentality out here. And I think you're losing more people than you're propagating. And listen, the whole thing about the money, bro, I can tell you right now, I had all the money in the world before I went to prison. I went to prison and I had nothing. I was happier in prison with nothing than I was with all the money in the world and a bunch of fake friends. I'll take prison with nothing over all the fucking money in the world and being around a bunch of fucking scumbags.
Well, you act like that's the only option.
I'm saying that Wes has other options too. And if Wes was smart, you know what he'd do? Right now, he just got arrested and charged with that.
I haven't talked to him.
Yeah, I think yesterday or the day before he got charged with that battery. If he was smart, he would humble himself. He would do some videos and say he's making some changes. Because your behavior catches up.
Well, he might widen his audience, but for the same people that like you're talking about being offended by what he's saying, there's a lot of people getting help from what he's saying.
Sure. There's always the exception to the rule, but
I know
some people that they need a bully. I get it. That's
fine. I know, but if you Google him, his coaching program's a scam, dude. I know personally people that went and heard what his coaching program teaches them, and they went out and fucking built their own little Wes Watson. Now they're not as big as Wes is, because Wes, like you said, he's got the Dago and he's got the story and he's bald, and there's a little that goes with it. Like, in other words, if somebody knows how to make someone famous, I can make everybody famous, but maybe that one got more famous. But I know people personally that went through his coaching program, did what he told them to do, shredded up, got on a simple ass phone. And by the way, Wes, like, if you text him or DM him or whatnot, like, he answers them all. I've sat here and watched him. I'm wondering, like, what does he do? Stay up all night and answer everybody? But point being is, I know people that went through his program and now they're doing $50,000 to $100,000 a month coaching, just like he is. And then you see people going, there's a scam. It's like, dude, that ain't a scam. His course for sure. It isn't a scam. Now, did people go through it and get ripped off? Because you've seen the stories, yeah? Well, probably because
you could get ripped off doing it.
I know, but why did that guy get ripped off? I'll tell you why. Because Wes's customer service skills ain't number one, but that's it. Because Wes, basically, the story is they gave him money and he basically said, go fuck yourself. Well, I bet you that's not the story. That's just what that dude's saying. And then everybody wants to jump on the bandwagon because Wes is, swole and freaking making a couple million a month. And when someone says, no, he's not. Yes, he fucking is. Because I was trying to get at the merchant processing business and I saw his bank accounts, and yes, he is. So he's not full of shit in that way. Might he be a dick? He's never been a dick in front of me. And again, I just know people that he's helped. I've never witnessed the bad, is all I'm saying. Just like if someone said that Mac guy, I'd say the same thing about you. I'd say he seemed fucking nice to me. Well, dude, he used to scam people. Yeah. Didn't we all? Like, people look down on felons. Like, dude, you're a fucking felon. You just didn't get caught. So what's the difference? You know what I'm saying? I'll bet you anything. All these highfalutin fuckers that want to look down on felons are probably felonious too. They just didn't get caught. So does that make you better? You got caught scamming. He didn't get caught scamming. And now he wants to look at you like you're some sort of scumbag because you got caught. So getting caught is the problem. It's not scamming people that bothers you. it's getting caught. Matt got caught and you didn't, so you're better. Well, again, technically, that's what I think. Because I know me, and I know in my life, dude, I've gotten away with some stupid shit. I used to walk into or allegedly, because I don't know statutes or anything. But when I'm a teenager, dude, I allegedly used to take a list from my friends. What do you want? They'd say, I want 5 pairs of Levi's and 6 Izods. Remember the Izods? Mm-hmm. And then this guy wanted Ralph Lauren, the polo shirts. And I'm like, okay, and I'll take a leather jacket and a toolbox. And dude, I would get in my car and go to stores, walk in and fill the list, and then go back and get paid, allegedly. Mm-hmm. The same guy that just said I wouldn't do shit.
Yeah.
But dude, like that. Again, I mean, it's like, I don't even know where I was going with that. But my point is like
you were trying to justify Wes's behavior.
No. That's his style. I believe if you sat down and had a long conversation with him, unless he didn't like you and he was being a dick to you, because, there's no question Wes can be a rude motherfucker. But I'll bet you if you like hung around him, you'd be like, dude, this guy's not a bad dude. Now, someone could say, you don't know about him beating his girl. I've read it all, but I don't know that he beat his girl. I don't know if I found out he was beating girls, I would agree that you don't beat girls. And if he beats girls all day long, well, then I'd say, fuck, I didn't know that about him. Well, you read it, didn't you? Just because you read it don't mean shit. And just because some hater says some shit don't mean shit. Like there's usually haters that you're reading about. Like I've never Googled you, but if I did, I'll bet you I'd find some haters on you. Oh yeah. And dude, what people don't realize is some of those guys, they're 12-year-olds that don't even know you, sitting in their mom's basement, and they're coming across like a legitimate person. There's people that hit all of our customers. They got a course, they're scammers. If you got a course, you're a scammer. That's bullshit. But anyway, I don't want to defend Wes. Wes can defend himself. But now you gave him a whole bunch more. People are Googling him right now. Wes, right? Who's Wes? But dude, I see you when I watched your content, I'm like, I didn't know any of this. Like, this is blowing my mind. Like, damn, dude, good for you. But you're a good interviewer. You are getting in there. Where's the creativity come from? And you said you were painting to make money. Were you painting because that's an easy way to make something of value quickly?
No, I have my degree. I have a BA in fine arts.
So you're a creator.
Yeah, I mean, I've always been.
You're an artist.
Yeah.
Do you put that art into your storytelling?
I mean, I think there is an art to storytelling, obviously. Yeah. Obviously, you foreshadow, you have setup, you have, but in the end, it's a story.
Are you editing the video yourself?
What, the videos that when I do a podcast and interview somebody?
Yeah.
No, Colby does all that. Colby does the editing. He puts up the thumbnails. I schedule stuff and I do the interviews,
Are you still looking for guests?
I'm always looking for guests, of course.
Dude, I can get your inbox flooded. I don't know if they're worth having, but like right now, if I say, hey guys, if you guys have pulled some sort of crime and got caught, because if you didn't get caught, do not go on a podcast unless you.
It depends on what statute of limitations on fraud is typically 5 or 10 years.
I'd just suggest get a lawyer. Don't take my advice. But if you already been caught and you got a killer story, blow up his inbox. Get on that show right there, because that show is going nuts, dude. Everybody's watching it. It's called Inside True Crime.
Right.
And again, ideally, that's why when someone said, well, he's going to interview you afterwards, I said, what the fuck does he know about me? Like, why am I going to be on that show?
That's why we do the interview.
To what?
To find out, so you can tell your story. Where you're born. Yeah. How'd you end up?
I'm from the old school.
How'd you end up here?
I'm from the old. Well, that's an entrepreneur journey.
Right. That's fun. Listen, I've interviewed former CIA agents, retired FBI, retired Secret Service, I've interviewed homicide detectives. I've interviewed tons of people.
Who do you think is the best guest with the most fascinating story that people should go watch?
Gosh, the problem is I like scammers, right? So there's actually there was a guy named Six. which we did an interview with him. We did one. He's I think it's basically checks is what he does. And then I've got a bunch of other guys. We did a guy named Ghost the other day where they do doing credit card scams. A lot of these are I tend to like the fraud ones better. Listen, I'll tell you, I interviewed a guy who I think he robbed 4 banks. And most bank robbery stories are kind of the same, right? They figured out how to do what they were going to do. They kind of planned it. Just real quick, this guy is telling us, he keeps saying we. Yeah, and I keep thinking he's talking about he and his wife. And he's like, so we're about to go in the bank. I'm like, okay. And, I'm kind of thinking like, this is just a mediocre story. And it went from a mediocre story to holy shit. And he goes, we're going in the bank. I go, when you say we, I mean, is this your wife? She's not in the car. Why didn't she stay in the car? He goes, oh, no. He goes, no, I should have explained that. He goes, I've always had kind of like an imaginary friend. And I go, what? He goes, yeah, his name is Mad Duck. He goes, so me and Mad Duck are going, I guess I should say that. Me and Mad Duck are going in the bank. And you realize like, holy shit. He's like, and I stop for a second. Mad Duck looks at me and he says, what are you going to do? I said, well, I'm robbing this bank. And he goes, well, let's do it, bro. And we go in there and I say, everybody put he's throughout the whole story, he's talking about he and Mad Duck robbing the bank.
So now he's crazy. You got a crazy person in front of you.
But it is a great story.
Is he making it up or is it true?
I think he's partially joking, but I do think he's kind of had this imaginary friend, and he explains where Mad Duck came from, and it was always been there. And in these moments that are real, like tense moments, Mad Duck will turn to him and say, well, what are you going to do? What are you going to do, Houdini? You gonna get out of this and jump or what? He's like, fuck yeah. He's like, let's do it. And we jump.
It's like Fight Club.
But it was a great video. It didn't get a ton of numbers. I think it got 20 or 30,000, which bothers me. You ever interview somebody and you're like, man, this is going to do numbers. And then it doesn't do numbers. And you'll interview some other guy and you're like, it was okay. And it gets 1 million views.
Yeah, I never figure out how that works, but I imagine it's like who saw it and who promoted it and what they do. And you never know.
Yeah, it's hit or miss, but he had a great story. I've got a bunch of guys that have a bunch of I like the scammers because especially if they can tell their stories. I'll take a crackhead who's been in 4 or 5 car chases and has done a bunch of stupid shit, but can tell his story over a guy who stole $100 million and just can't tell the story.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Where would someone apply to be on your show?
It's funny. In all the description, in the description box, we have a link where you go and you leave like a 3-minute video and you can type out your story. And then what we do is we schedule a call and then I talk to you and then I explain to you, look, here's where we're at. You fly in, you this, you that, or drive it, whatever.
And you either like them or don't.
Yeah. I mean, I've had guys that I've talked to and when the story's done, I'm like, I'm sorry, bro. Like I get it, but that's a 30-minute story. Or I'll talk to guys and I'm like, bro, you were never caught for this. This is 2 years ago. The statute of limitations is 5 years. Like it's a bad idea.
So you got people confessing then.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. Sometimes,
that's what I mean. Like if that's a criminal's own mouth, like why is he telling a story if he's never been caught? Number one, number two, and the statutes aren't up.
I mean, doesn't happen a lot, but yeah, I mean, we had that conversation and that doesn't happen a lot. Typically these guys have gone to prison, they've got out and they've reformed themselves. They've done turnaround times. And I'm going to tell you real quick, you know what a turnaround time is? Or a turnaround story is?
Yeah.
A turnaround story is not you growing up upper middle class and you graduating college with a finance degree and you running some kind of a business and it ends up being a scam. You go to prison, you get out, and then you end up opening another business and you become successful. You grew up middle class, you have a degree, you should have always been successful. You had every opportunity. A comeback story is the black kid that grew up in the projects that never knew his father, whose mother was dating drug dealers, whose brothers were drug dealers. They all went in and out of prison. He eventually sells drugs. He goes to prison, gets out, goes to prison, gets out, goes to prison, gets out. He's 45 years old and he finally realizes I can't do this anymore. He learns how to drywall or become a plumber. And he gets out, starts his own business, and he's making $150,000, and he's got 2 kids and a wife. That's a comeback story. That other guy, He always should have been making money. Like me, people say that I'm a comeback story. I had every opportunity that I fucked up. That guy has a comeback story. And that's what bothers me about Wes Watson. Because Wes Watson's saying he's a loser because he's fucking laying drywall. He's not a loser. He's not a loser. That's what bothers me. And that's why I think he's a scumbag.
Well, dude, that's why I'd make a great fucking episode.
Yeah,
honestly.
The difference is here is that
I
don't want to get bitch slapped by Wes Watson on my podcast.
Well, he probably wouldn't come on.
Well, of course
because he like you and a lot of other people, you know, everybody's got their own ego attached, but like that would just be a good episode. Why? Because again, that's you're making a great point that he probably doesn't see from your perspective. And I would assume, I don't know what he would say, but I know, like, if I were playing that role and I was on your show, and you said that, I would say, let me correct myself because I'm open. And that would be, well, he should though, because when he's saying it, he doesn't really mean you're a fucking loser if you're not making millions and you have abs. What he's trying to do is shock people to stop fucking being such a dumbass. Because, dude, think about it. And I do my share of it.
I agree with the message.
And I do my share of it. But the way I do it is, for some reason, I'd say it nicer. Like I say, guys, if you're not making this, I still say it to everybody listening. If you're not making 120 grand a year, okay, then you're doing something wrong. He would say, if you're not making 120 grand a year, you're a fucking loser. Well, I don't go that far because I'm like you, dude. They're not losers. I can't help losers. I can only help winners that are currently losing. You see the difference? I don't look at people losers because they're down and out. I look at losers like you're out fucking people all day. Like what you were doing, that's a loser.
Yeah, that's a scumbag.
Yeah, and what Wes did to get in prison in the first place, that's a loser. A loser isn't somebody that isn't making much money. That could be a winner who's currently losing, and that's who I can help. And so I don't say it like that because I don't think people with no money are losers. I think if you continue to have no money, you might end up in the loser category because everybody's got the ability to get in the position to receive commission. That's why when you said, times are tough and you can't feed your kids, dude, that's never, ever going to be me unless it is anarchy. And then if it was anarchy, dude, I'm flipping Lex Luthor. Why? Because that's how you're going to survive.
Right.
But if there's police and laws in place, I'm not breaking them. Why? Because you don't have to fucking break them. You don't have to be a liar and a cheat to get ahead. I guarantee you. In fact, that's the way you're not going to get ahead. Would you agree? You might get ahead temporarily like you did, or like drug dealers do, or like pimps do. But guess what? It always ends badly. So the opposite is true. You can be an honest, good person looking to help and provide an actual solution and get rich as shit. But you have to be in the position to receive commission. You have to sell something. I don't know anybody that ain't selling something. You're selling fucking creativity and the revenue's coming from advertisers. You're selling. People say, well, LeBron James doesn't sell. Fuck, he doesn't. Okay. LeBron James is a salesperson. He's selling tickets. He's selling jerseys. He's selling freaking eyeballs. So everybody needs to get into sales. And I say that, but I just leave off the you're a loser if you don't part, because again, that's not my shtick, but for Wes it is. And obviously you believe the same thing I do, where that guy, that is a winner. If you ask me, coming through that shit and coming out where he is, killing, even though he's not making much money. But I would also tell that guy, listen, bro, don't get too proud sitting right there, because you could be doing 15 million. No, I could. Yes, you could. And he should. And that's my point. Like, dude, I don't know what you're making now, but everybody needs to just try to outdo the day before and look at themselves as competition. Like, I don't compete with you. I don't compete with Wes. I compete with me. And I think if everyone did that, it'd be a better world to live in. But I don't want to be on a soapbox. But dude, I got my strong opinions when it comes to that shit, and I'm passionate like you are. Just not against Wes for calling people fat. Like, number one, I think it's funny, but again, I'm also not considering how that person may feel. You know what I mean? Like yesterday, I had a lady in here. She was a hooker. straight up call girl for years. Got her ass beat the whole call girl life. And now she has something called Hookers for Jesus.
I interviewed her.
She's shaving hookers.
Yeah. I interviewed her.
Yeah. Like, dude,
like a year or two ago. Yeah.
Yeah. Like to me, you know, some people would look at her and be like, ooh, you were a hooker. And they'll just label her that forever. And it's like, dude, people can change and they do change. And quite frankly, the secret to growth is change.
Yeah. She was a very nice person. People are assholes. Like, you know, she's a very nice person. She's trying to do the right thing. She had a bunch of shitty relationships. She's had some shitty things happen. Like, you know, people that walk around judging everybody, like, you know, you are typically very unhappy.
Yeah.
You know, typically. Well, not always, but yeah. So,
well, dude, what a hell of a story. Now I know why you're popular and getting more popular, because not only is your story pretty miraculous, but now you're good at getting the story because you understand the angles.
You know what I'm saying?
Right?
I mean,
but that's why because dude, you're a criminal mind. Whether you're doing crime or not, you can have a criminal mind.
Well, I understand the layout of the story, so I understand how to coax people into the things that they like. Just like we like, none of these guys turned around and said, hey, I'm going to rob a bank. And they started becoming a professional bank robber and they were good at it for the next, 5 years and never got caught. Like everything is a gradual process. There's a reason, there's things went right, things went wrong, how it happened, there's pitfalls. I mean, so everybody has that in their story. Like if they don't have that, then they probably don't have a story to begin with, or it was a very simple story. And let's face it, you robbed a gas station and your buddy told on you 2 weeks later and you got caught and you went to prison and you have a couple prison stories and that's it. Like that guy doesn't get to come on the podcast because you've got a 20-minute story. I need watch time. I need you to have
is that a key for YouTube?
Yeah, I'm doing long form content. So I need people I need an hour to 2 hour video minimum. So that people will watch the whole video. The guys that watch my channel are driving forklifts. They're long distance truck drivers. They're putting on roofs. They want to put on a Matt Cox podcast for 2 hours or 3 hours. They want a full story that they can experience while they're, loading shelves or doing whatever they do.
What if someone were to say to you, Matt, I love your show. Your show's great, but what you're doing is you're educating soon to be scammers.
I mean, listen, it's already on. They're going to figure it out. Like that. That's just silly. It's the same thing as like watching Catch Me If You. It's like, what it's like saying, hey, your son's playing a first person shooter. You're training him to be a school shooter. Cut the fucking shit, bro. Come on. If he's going to be a school shooter, he was going to be it with the game or not. If the guy's going to scam, he doesn't need me to help.
Yeah, but listen, prisons usually generate super criminals. Like they think you're going to prison to rehabilitate, dude. They send you to prison around other fucking really smart criminals. And people say, well, they're not that smart or they wouldn't be in jail. No, there's some smart son bitches in there. And let me tell you something. They're getting smarter because they're masterminding in the damn place. So like, I
agree. We should stop. So what do you think? We should stop sending people to prison?
I would not send people to prison. It depends on the crime though. Violent criminals, prison. White collar criminals, I'd just kick them out of the United States.
Yeah. Well, so what are some reasonable solutions?
Oh, like what if I came to you? And by the way, like if I were a white collar criminal, that ain't that bad. I'd go to Italy for a 4-year bid and be done. But like, I don't think that sending you to prison, especially for 13 years, did the trick. In other words, because dude, they gave you probation and that didn't do the trick. And who knows? I mean, hopefully you've learned your lesson, dude.
Well, I think what
could you say with conviction
solutions?
Okay, answer this. Can you say with conviction, Brad, I would never fucking break the law again?
Absolutely not. But
I mean, without the extremism, just in general, you're not going to get stupid and fucking figure out another scam, are you?
No, probably I don't need another scam. I got probably 40 in my Rolodex, like in my library.
This ain't pulled yet.
I mean, I wouldn't say that. I would say that, because listen, you don't understand fraud. You know what has the highest recidivism rate?
Prison.
Fraud.
Oh, the
fraud.
charge? Yeah.
Fraud. You know what has the lowest recidivism rate?
Violence?
Murder. So fraudsters are worse than drug dealers. Here's the reason, is that once it's in your blood and you realize how easy it is and the thrill you get from making it and the amount of money that you can make doing it, it's a hard thing to break. I have a buddy right now that's in prison that he did 14 years, got out of prison, committed a crime, went back to prison for 13, 14 months, got out for about a year, back in already.
Okay, now that guy.
Very smart guy, by the way.
Yeah, but that guy, wouldn't you consider that stupid?
Yeah, I think that he's desperate, and and I love this guy to death. And we tried so hard to help him, and we tried to he started a podcast, and I don't know what went wrong. He's locked up right now. I can't really talk to him. You can't talk to him on the prison phone. I don't know what happened. I would have done anything for him to help him.
Well, dude, you can't. That's the sad thing. You can't. Only he can help himself.
Yeah, exactly. You can't do it for him, right?
And unfortunately, there's people in the world that they're not dumb. See, that's what I mean by I say dumb just as a point, but because I think that's dumb. Like, dude, you get caught once and you learn your lesson, and you're like, holy shit, I understand now. And fuck, I'm sorry, dude. Forgive that guy. Act like he never did it and move on. But the dude that continues to scam and continues to scam and continues to scam, if I were running the country, I wouldn't want that dude in my country.
I know, but you can't kick people out that are born in the country. You can't. It's unconstitutional.
Why not? We can throw them in prison and make them work for 11 cents an hour.
I agree.
Okay, then why can't you? Well, why can't you?
Because you were born here. Because what country is going to take them? You can't just.
I don't give a fuck. Don't rip shit off. Don't fraud this place.
Okay, but you can't take some guy and drop him off in Guatemala because he's a U.S. citizen. They'll say, take your guy back. Like, come on, like use it. Well,
then remember Australia?
Yeah, I understand.
Let's find an island.
Well, I'm sure there's plenty of islands that's probably an option. Because obviously you're saying, hey, this is the United States, but you have to stay here. It's a form of prison.
Would you rather go to Criminal Island? No, you're free to go, but no one wants you. But would you rather go to Criminal Island or fucking Terminal Island, New York? I'd go to Criminal Island.
I've never been to either one. I don't know enough about it. And I listen.
I'd just rather get kicked out of the country than go to prison.
What I think, well, prison's not that bad.
Shit.
I mean, I feel like, and I'm going to go out of my way here. I feel like only one of us has more experience in this. I did like 9 years in a low security prison. It's not that bad. It wasn't horrible. It sucks. But the problem is for you,
did you have money on your books?
No, of course not. I'm writing guys' stories. Like
Did you have a hustle?
I write guys' stories and I had a job.
Were they, so you had commissary money?
No, not really. I did, but you have to understand that here's what most guys do. Most guys go into prison, they play handball, they work out, they learn to play the guitar, and they learn they take a horticulture class. You know what I'm saying? Like they do some stuff, but they basically are goofing off. They're watching TV, they're betting on sports, they're playing cards. I didn't do that.
What'd you do?
I taught GED, I taught the real estate class at night, and I wrote guys' stories because I realized after a few years, and I wrote my own story, I wrote my memoir, that I really, really liked it. I got to research stuff. I got to send off a Freedom of Information Act. I got to get the reports and read them, put together a story. I got to figure out how to tell the story in a unique, interesting way. And I saw these other guys that had amazing stories, but they couldn't tell them.
Yeah.
So I said, let me tell your story. I'll try and get you in a magazine, and then we'll try and option the life rights for the story and maybe get a movie made. And they're like, you think you can do that? No, I don't think I can do that, but I have the time to try. And so that's what I did. And maybe we can get you a book deal. You think you get a book deal? Fucking no. But I can write 200 letters to literary agents and see if we can get a literary agent that will try. You think it'll work? What do I care? I don't want to play basketball.
Have you done it for yours yet?
Yeah, I optioned mine. I've optioned mine. It gets Scott's optioned several times.
What's the book called?
Well, my book is called Shark in the Housing Pool. But I've optioned the life rights, and it's been optioned multiple times. But listen, I'd rather deal with criminals than people in Hollywood. Like, they're shady, they're fucked up,
What's the
lie to your
difference?
face. The difference is, what's the difference? The difference is a criminal typically won't do that to another criminal because they could get stabbed. There's no recourse in guys that are lying to your face. And then 2 days later, they tell you another lie. And you're like, that's not what you told me on Tuesday.
Do I see Matt Cox in the future writing screenplays?
I've actually written a screenplay. But anyway, I mean, what I do is I write synopses and I write books.
And they paid you to do that?
Yes.
So do you do it now?
Yeah. I'm actually working on a book right now, but I've got like 7 books right now that are on Amazon, and I get, that's part of the money I get. And here's what's funny about that. Think about this. Let's say I make, I don't know, I've made 1,000, sometimes it's 1,000 a month, sometimes it's 3,000 or 4,000 a month. Depends on the podcast I do and what the interest is. Like after I did like Lex Friedman and some, like, you know, it was really good for like 3 months. And then it dies down. But here's the thing, like I'm making royalties on a book that I wrote 10 years ago in prison. So what I'm saying is the guys that are goofing off in prison, you could be working on your second act.
Hey.
They're not working on their second act. The whole time I was locked up, I was working on my second act. And by the way, I didn't care if I made any money at it. I enjoyed doing it. And I had told myself, if you have to stay and live in some rooming house for the rest of your life, but this is what you do and you love it, then that's what you do.
Well, look at Jordan Belfort.
Yeah.
He wrote Wolf of Wall Street in prison. He did his second act.
No, he did. I don't know what's happened with his podcast. Like he was posting stuff and then he started charging people to come on the podcast, I think. And then he just stopped putting up podcasts. Like, I don't know what.
Well, because again, I mean, he didn't do it right.
Yeah, I was gonna say he was so close and he didn't tweak it. And I guess he expected, like, listen, it's a grind. It's a grind sometimes.
It's a grind and it's got a catch, but like yours, without knowing you and talking to you, now I really want to go listen to him. But before, like it's like a genre. True crime. You know, I want to hear stories about people and how they get away with it and all that shit. My son, believe it or not, has a podcast. Everyone go subscribe if you like horror films. And I don't know where he got his fucking love for horror, but it's called Talks from the Crypt. And dude, number one, he figured out how to make about 50 to 100 grand a month every month. I didn't teach him how to do it. People are like, oh, chip off the old block. It's like, dude, I'm surprised. Like, that's awesome. But then he started a podcast because he loves horror films, and now he's getting like Freddy Krueger's and shit, like from old horror. But dude, there's a genre for that.
I don't understand what you mean. He's getting Freddy Krueger. Like guys are
like the guy that played Freddy Krueger.
Oh, want to come on the podcast and be interviewed or something?
Yeah.
That's super cool.
Because you know, horror there's a whole.
It's a huge genre.
Yeah, and so crime, true crime is there's a niche for that. Jordan Belfort didn't have a focus. He was just trying to. People would listen, so he was just talking to people, and then he realized people would pay to get on the podcast, so he started charging for people, and there's a whole series of that going on. And again, I mean, people can sponsor this podcast and sit right there if they want, but the point is I don't do just anybody, and I don't think Jordan did either. I think it had to just be a good fit. But my point is, that's a whole industry and way to monetize a podcast. But the podcasts that go big, I think, are the ones that have a purpose. Like this one was really intended to be entrepreneur. What lessons can we learn to go out and build big businesses and learn from your mistakes? So this applies in entrepreneurship. People listen right now that have a business are listening. You might have educated somebody that might have a crooked broker. So I kind of opened it to life, but still mine doesn't. I mean, mine's supposedly a big one. I don't even know how to tell. Do you? There's where I was going to go. So you have videos. Now my videos on YouTube of this podcast get 3,000-4,000 views. My podcast, which is all audio, podcasts are audio, I'll get 200,000 downloads. Right. Well, that's a good freaking number.
Right.
So, but it's download. They don't watch the video. And yours do you have an audio?
Yeah, we have, we're on Spotify.
Are you on Apple, iTunes?
So that's a Colby question.
I'll ask Colby.
Okay.
because you should be all over the audio because you're right. Your stories are so engaging, dude. People just want to fucking listen for hours. If it's not on there, I'd be surprised.
Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty sure we're on all the platforms.
And if you're getting thousands of views on video, you're probably getting shit tons more downloaded with audio, and you're not even. I haven't figured out how do you monetize that other than sponsors.
You can get monetized from StreamYard. What am I saying? From those videos, from the downloads, you can get monetized.
How?
Like we make. Well, I mean, you can talk to Colby, but I mean, our Spotify is monetized. We make about half on Spotify what we make on YouTube. So the numbers are about half because most of our viewers are from YouTube, right?
Yeah.
We also have TikTok and Instagram. Like we've got those, and we just started X.
What's your best platform?
It's YouTube. YouTube brings in the most money. And we just 6 months ago, we just started getting sponsors where, you know how it is. You're doing the thing. And it's so funny because Colby's really good at this. Like I'll be talking to some guy I'm interviewing and he'll say something about falling asleep. And then an ad for me talking about, do you sleep hot? Do you want a cool pillow? Cool pillows. And then I do an ad. So, we drop the ads in through as you go and those sponsors, pay for you. But I was going to say, what's funny you mentioned this is that I do keynote speaking. So the same banks that I ripped off hire me to come and talk at their conventions and their annual meetings. I do credit unions. I do mortgage companies. I do cybersecurity companies. So that's one of the things that I do that laying in prison, 5-6 years ago, I would have never believed. Like I wouldn't have even thought that was possible.
Yeah. Well, that's your subject matter expertise.
Yeah.
You're almost like, hey, show me how I can get ripped off. Have you ever gotten that deal yet?
Show me. Oh yeah. No, so do you know what home title lock is? So home title lock is a service that monitors the title to your house. And so if there's any change in the title, let's say there's a satisfaction filed or a transfer of deed, anything, they notify you, which is good in and of itself. But then what do? You don't know what to do. Well, they'll represent you on correcting the problem. They'll hire a lawyer for you. They'll spend up to $1 million to correct the issue.
Well, how did it happen?
Well, let's say somebody like me comes in and you rent a house to me and you got some asshole like me who satisfies the loan and starts borrowing money. You'll be notified and you'll say, hey, I don't understand. This just happened. That wasn't me. I didn't pay that loan off.
I thought with the blockchain, that shit's pretty much over.
Blockchain? I'm talking about a title.
I know, but do you know what the blockchain is?
Right, but I'm talking about a home title.
I know, but if a home title was put on the blockchain, you ain't changing that motherfucker without the right credentials.
Right, but I'm talking about public records in downtown. That's where you're.
Aren't they on the blockchain yet?
No. This is paper. These are paper scanned documents that are in a system downtown.
Are you shitting me?
Yeah.
Because I remember fake IDs, and I remember like you could go down and order someone's. First of all, you look up the death certificate, you find out one that you want to be that age, and then you go order their birth certificate, and then you go and you apply at the DMV and get your driver's license.
Yeah, I don't know.
That was easy back in the day.
Yeah, that was. I don't believe. And every state's different, but I don't believe that would work anymore.
No, that was a long time ago.
Okay.
But like right now, I thought I just assumed, dude, everybody's putting everything on the blockchain, so you can't screw up no ledgers.
No, but it's the government. They're antiquated. They're behind on everything. Like
where is your home now?
I live in Tampa, Florida. Well, just outside Tampa.
Tampa, Florida. Are you religious?
Yeah, I actually go to a church called Bridgeway. We go every Sunday, my wife and I.
Did you have any contradiction with your faith after scamming everybody? Obviously not at the time, but how about now?
I mean, obviously it's wrong.
But I mean, do you like, are you more faith-based now or no? Because a lot of times people go to prison and they find Jesus.
Yeah, no, I didn't find Jesus in prison. I didn't, and I've had people who have said to me like, did you have like a moment when, no, it was a gradual moment. And I always kind of sum it up with a buddy of mine named Pete, who kind of said, and I actually had already kind of figured this out when I was writing my memoir. And you start re-examining your life and you realize like, oh, wow, that was a scumbag move. Like you told yourself at the time that was, oh no, it's fine. But you knew better. You knew this could go wrong for that person. Like that was a shitty thing. So, I didn't allow myself to think it then, but then you start thinking about it in prison. And so I've been through this a little bit, but this was a great way to sum it up. And my buddy Pete used to say this. He'd say, you cannot go to prison and continue to behave in the manner that led you to prison and then exit prison and continue to behave that way and not expect to come back to prison. So when you're in prison, you have to figure out how to alter your behavior.
Change.
Right. And so I got there and I realized that I just need to be a decent human being all the time, even if it's to my detriment. And I don't have to go back to prison. And back to your point about fraud, like honestly, to this day, there's not, in the back of my mind, I always think about it. And for the first few years, I was constantly thinking about it. And I kept telling myself, like, no, you can hold out. You can hold out. You don't have to do that. You don't have to do that. This was a constant battle. And I got to the point where I started making enough money to pay my bills and then some. And I get out of the spare room and I get into the apartment and I meet Colby. And I started realizing that behaving well is very beneficial. You have to sacrifice. It's a sacrifice.
Either way, though.
But it's beneficial in the long run. And I kind of almost felt like I hate the fact that you bring up the God thing, because this is my explanation and it sounds more preachy than it is, but it felt like, and it felt like as I was walking and doing the right thing, God was clearing the path for me. Does that make sense?
Sure.
Because I know how hokey it sounds, but when you're doing the right thing and everything's working, you start to go. And I'm not saying everything worked all the time.
By the way, that's called intuition, dude. We know the difference between right and wrong. And it don't sound hokey to me because I believe, but it might sound hokey to a non-believer.
I know, but people that are non-believers, then they get, oh, this guy's preaching God, and you do a podcast, you try and say middle of the road, right? Like I lean more conservatively, but I try not to push hard on it because so many people are pushed back. There's so many woke people that they can't, even if you present them 100% with the truth, they just don't want to believe it.
Yeah.
And so I try not to push that agenda because, it backfires. And look, I get it. I'd like free healthcare. I understand where you're at. Right. I'd love it if we could just bring everybody that wants to come in this country and they can just come in and everything, but it doesn't work. Like I get it. I understand. I want to do the right thing. I want to feed the poor. I get it.
You don't want to hurt cows.
Right. But it's not the way the real world works, and I'm sorry for that, but it's just not.
So here's my last question for you, because I kept you way longer than it is probably the longest podcast ever. Maybe because it's you.
Oh, this is nothing. You stopped me at the good parts of my story.
Dude, well, I'll have you back on another one. Normally it's an hour. It's been 2. And I want to ask this one last question. You seem to get choked up when you're ever talking about somebody helping you.
Right. Yeah.
Did you get screwed your whole life? What was your childhood like? Like, did no one ever stick up for you? Did everybody stab you every single time?
No, I mean, I would, like, my father was an alcoholic, but listen to this. He was very successful.
But you get choked up when you talk about someone did something nice for me. It's almost like you don't believe that that's even real.
Well, I don't feel like I have it coming. Like, you go to prison and one of the things I realized was that nobody fucking owes you anything. Like, you got yourself here. You're going to figure a way out, but nobody owes you anything. So when I left prison, I knew I was going to do everything on my own. Nobody owes me shit. You don't have nothing coming, and don't ask for anything.
Well, again, I wouldn't agree with that part, but the rest I do.
So the thing is, so when I acted, I just started doing the right thing, and people are constantly asking me, do you need anything? Do you need anything? Can I this? Can I that? I'm like, no. And I mean, guys are like, literally like, bro, I'm trying to give you money. You don't, but no, bro, I don't make enough money. I don't think I can pay you back, and I don't want to borrow anything, and I don't want to be that guy, and I don't want you to feel like I'm coming up with all these reasons, and I just couldn't. And also, when you're in prison, like when you're in prison, you don't borrow stuff from people. You get in trouble
big time.
So you don't borrow. You don't run up debts. You don't do that. And
otherwise you might be paying with your ass.
Yeah, you might get stabbed, you might get beat, you might get, and yeah, that's kind of I don't know about that.
If you owe somebody, you're paying it one way or the other.
You're paying you
might be paying with a smashed face, but you're paying.
Yeah, somehow or another, you're probably gonna pay.
That's one good thing I think that people do learn in the system. It's called respect. Because, dude, you can get fucking stabbed for reaching over somebody's tray.
Oh yeah, it's
you get stabbed because you walk down somebody's fucking mopped floor.
Yeah, you learn very quick.
And if you tiptoe across the mopped floor, you wouldn't have got stuck. But you walked by like a dick, boom, you got stuck. Isn't that crazy?
I mean, I understand, but
dude, you because you've been there,
right? You
probably have a higher level of basic respect for people. So I mean, I like that.
Well, I'm polite to everybody.
What's that?
I said I'm polite to everybody. Like I said, listen, if Adolf Hitler and Stalin sat down at the table, I'm going to be polite. I'm going to be respectful. I'm, like that whole 6 million Jews thing that was out of line. Stalin, you killed 20 million of your own people. Really should have thought that through. There's, your ideologies are a little off there, fellas, but sure, we can sit here and have a conversation. Everybody said
be friends.
Everybody said Jeffrey Dahmer was a great neighbor. So,
would you want him as your neighbor now?
Well, no, I don't think so. But I'm very good at compartmentalizing. Like, when I was single, I would have dated Casey Anthony. She seemed like she'd be a lot of fun. Casey, we're not having kids. No, you're not going to babysit the next door neighbor's children. But she seems like she'd probably be a lot of fun. So I'm good at compartmentalizing, right? Like you have to be, because you're sitting down with people that are horrific, have done horrible things, but you also have to get along with them because we're all sharing the same area. So you can't be too judgmental. And back to the whole thing of the original question that you asked is that the childhood, like my father, and this is probably got me fucked up, is my father made a lot of money, but I was raised like upper middle class. But he had an alcohol problem. And what I realized after a certain period of time was he made a lot of money. Worked for companies, State Farm Insurance, but he was always a top producer. Like they're always going on the trips. He's got the top, all of his agents are top guys. And what would happen is every 6 months or a year, he'd fall off the wagon. He'd go on a 2-week bender. And if State Farm found out, you know what they did? They grabbed him, they put him in a rehab, they cleaned him up, get him clean, brought him back, put him back in the system, get him helping, get him selling, get him training people, get him going. Okay, great. Year and a half goes by. Oh shit, he's drunk again. But get him back put him in a 90-day program, put him in a 6 month, or put him in a 60-day program. Like companies don't do that. They don't do that now. So, but he was making money, and my mother catered to him, like total enabler. And what I realized during that period of time was, and this was not what I should have seen, is that if you make enough money and if you make the people around you money, you can basically behave any way you want, and they'll put up with it.
Yep.
Right? You're a rainmaker. And so you can be a complete fucking narcissistic prick, and people will cater to you because you're a moneymaker. And in my mind, that's what I thought I needed to do. I need to make a lot of money, because that's the way you'll survive. That's the way it should be. That's just like to be just like your dad.
And you think that emotion that wells up when you're talking about people doing nice things is because you either you actually realize there is something good about humanity where maybe you didn't, or I'm torn between the other one that I'm thinking maybe it is you don't have any self-worth because you're guilty of all the shit you pulled. You feel guilt.
I feel guilty, and listen, like I'm not I'm not 100% narcissistic, but I'm on the scale, so and as a being someone who's arrogant or narcissistic, like that doesn't come out of a place of being extremely confident. It comes out of a place of insecurity. So, I'm great at putting on the front and doing this and doing that. But the truth is, of course, I'm extremely insecure. You know what I'm saying? Like there's insecurities there. And the fact that going through 13 years of prison and I get in conditioning myself not to borrow anything, expecting to have nothing, and, lowering my expectations of life, when people started reaching out to me and trying to help me, and like Tyler helping me just through the whole thing. Tyler, you know what I paid Tyler?
Nothing.
Not a fucking dime. He was just a good friend. I've never been a good friend to Tyler. To this day, I've never done anything for Tyler. To this day, if I say, call him up, Tyler, hey, I've been trying to get a hold of this guy. I don't know how to get a hold of him. He said, I'll get a hold of him for you. He's just a good guy. It's so.
See, but there it is again, because you don't think you are.
Yeah, because deep down, I don't think I deserve those types of friends. And it bothers me.
Well, maybe you didn't in the past, but you do now.
Yeah, I know. But, I got some issues, bro. I got some issues.
Well, that's why I'm happy you're doing what you're doing, because believe it or not, that shit's a cathartic medium to basically counsel yourself. Because you'll come to a point, dude, at one point in time, and you're going to realize that shit you did doesn't make you a fucking scumbag. It made you a fucking human. And yes, a human that was not very fucking ethical. But at the end of the day, dude, I wouldn't let it define you. I'll bet you're going to end up doing just fine. And you are worth it, even though you pulled some shady shit. You're still worth it, bro. Everybody in my mind, and I don't care what you did other than like major shit, like, hump kids or do anything like fucking that type of shit. Like I believe in wood chippers for pedophiles. But again, white collar crime. Yeah, you tried. Everybody would get tempted if the number was high enough and yada, 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 yada. But I also think, dude, you're growing up. You're getting older. Like right now, when someone says, how old are you, Brad? Mentally or chronologically? Because there's a difference. Mm-hmm. I'm not as old as I am. I'm just now becoming a fucking adult. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no,
but anyway, dude, I appreciate it. If anytime you want to come back on the show, I'd be dumb not to come back and talk stories, because you got a shit ton and I didn't even get to scratch the surface.
Well, I appreciate it. I'm sure I will be back in Vegas. Yeah.
So folks, go follow this dude if you want, at Inside True Crime or at Matthew Cox. You Google him. He's got stories on him, but he's also got a podcast. That's his number one thing right now, Inside True Crime. Killer stories of true crime and other things. And the dude's blowing up. Appreciate you coming in.
No problem.
Sorry I took twice as long as I was supposed to.
Nah, that's all right.
And folks, keep your nose clean. And as always, keep it real. Proud to dropping bombs. Kill the live, brother. Thanks for watching, people. Matt Cox, go follow him.